Recording in progress.
Good evening. Calling the May 14th, 2024 regular Town Council meeting, Committee of the Whole to order. We have, is Councilor McBride online?
He is.
He is, okay. So we have everybody present except for Councilor Parker. And I believe tonight is her TVCCA evening, so,
No, she just said she was going to do it 40
Okay.
minutes late.
all right. So all are present except for Councilor Parker. Up to calendar and communications. Councilor Merritt, welcome back.
Thank you.
Do you have any communications for us?
Not this evening.
Okay. Councilor Bordelon.
Thank you. Let's see. I received a message from Bruce McDermott that regarding a piece of art that he's trying to get displayed possibly at the Town Hall Annex, and I guess he said it's still a bit of a wait. I didn't know if the town manager had any updates on that.
He was going to get with the beautification committee, which all those things go through. I just haven't heard back since then.
Okay. Also, I did follow one of the FOIs with Bruce McDermott. Do we have a ruling on that one yet? I know you were going to report back.
No, it's not ongoing.
I thought it was finalized online.
No.
Stated that the,
One step of it is. But
one
it's not
step,
yet.
okay. And what step is that that's finalized?
The initial ruling, now it'll go back to the main council, to the main commission.
Okay, and they ruled in favor of McDermott?
Initially, yes.
Okay, for
They'll
the
do more
FOI,
time.
okay. And so what are we gonna get any updates on that as far as a town, or what we're having to do, or?
Only if the council as a whole asks. We don't, on FOIA, it's just a FOIA.
Okay, it's just a
request.
FOIA,
Yes, no,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then there was an email from Goodridge regarding a CHRO. Is that been served, not served? What does all that mean?
And I apologize. I know I had a talk with the mayor. The rules actually call for all questions to go to the mayor, so it's okay for me to answer that.
Actually, it was in the town manager's report that this would not be discussed at the town council. So I don't think that should be a topic of discussion here.
But it's FOIable, right? It's in our emails, so there is some type of CHR like that we can say.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you. All right. I've received some emails about SP Butler. Some people from out of town, from Waterford, talking about data centers. Information, wondering about the school budget. Concerns with some of the cuts. Some folks are concerned about not funding the, I was just in a meeting about grants, so I was going to say grants, but it's not grants. It's, what is it when you have a project? What is it called, John?
The CIPs?
CIP, sorry, making sure it's funded because it's not guaranteed. That the grant from the state is not guaranteed. Let's see what else I have. Concerns with, I did receive some complaints about folks concerned with, just the timing of certain things coming out, and I told them to reach out to you and the mayor, because, we, as a council, do not set the agenda, so that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do not have anything to pass this evening.
Thank you. Councilor Ross.
I just received all the same emails that everybody else did. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Jones.
I also received the same emails. Thank you.
Councilor Gajewski.
you,
Oh, I'm
Madam-
sorry. Councilor McBride.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Same emails everyone else received. A couple of other items I'd just like to touch upon. On Friday, I did attend the ribbon cutting of the solar panels at the Groton Middle School. I was very pleased with attending that project, and what was great about it was, I'm sure everybody's aware, that project was no cost to the town. However, it's going to be saving about $40,000 annually between the two schools. So that was a great day to see that come to fruition. On the 11th, I also attended and walked as a faculty member at the Mitchell College commencement ceremony. The speakers were excellent, and I thought it was great to see that there were 29 graduates from Eastern Connecticut, and there were 3 graduates from Groton. Some of them were had in my classes, so it was a great event to see local students graduate in that ceremony. This morning in Wallingford, I also attended the CCM Legislative Committee meeting, which focused on all the new bills recently passed just over the last week. Focus on the bills that were passed as well as some of those that failed, and discussing them regarding how they'll be moving forward in the next legislation. But I'll probably forward a summary to that. I'm not sure if John has it or not, but the council just to get an update on those various bills. So that was all. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Gajewski?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Same emails everyone else received, and welcome back, Council Meredith. It's good to have you back up here. That's it.
Thank you. I have been attending RTM budget meetings. I also attended the solar panel ribbon cutting up at the middle school, where I had the honor to flip the switch to turn them on, as well as being the first to light the athletic fields up at the middle school, which was something that I was very passionate about, getting those lights at that middle school on the athletic fields. And I also want to remind our residents that those were paid for with, I believe they were ARPA funds, and our council had passed that in a meeting, and I was very proud of that. So I had prepared something to speak tonight in relation to what had happened at our previous meeting. So our community has overwhelmingly voiced their opinion to me that they want a functioning, civil, respectful town council that does the business of our community. I am receiving calls. People are approaching me when I'm out in public. They're messaging me and telling me their thoughts about the Groton Town Council. Not town business, but rather the behavior they are seeing on TV. Last week, our meeting was disrupted to the point that the town business could no longer be conducted, and the town council needed to take a recess. I have pondered over these events and discussed them with residents, elected officials, town council members, town elders, the town manager, and I also received advice from people well-versed in Robert's Rules of Order. Due to the feedback that I received, I will be enforcing Robert's Rules of Order to a further extent, so the town's business can be conducted and completed in a timely and civil manner. Beginning today, execution of the fundamental rules of Robert's Rules of Order from the 12th edition will be further enforced. All communications must go through the mayor. If you have questions or comments for a presenter, a guest, town clerk, town councilor, town manager, they must all go through the mayor. This also includes points of information. The mayor can then answer, forward the question, or deny the question or comment if it is inappropriate, not germane, or it may be more appropriately answered outside the council. Interrupting, taking the floor when not recognized, using personality and motives of fellow councilors will be deemed out of order. These are fundamental, basic rules found in Robert's Rules of Order. If members become out of order, they will be given opportunities to come back into order. I ask councilors to be professional in their position to their colleagues and respect the rules that govern our body. Thank you. Hello, JC. Moderator? Ambrose, do you want to comment or come up and speak as an ex officio member?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to provide an RTM update on our budget sessions. The RTM restored the Board of Ed 7.9% increase, as well as the $143,000 Board of Ed CIP for the auditorium. And yesterday evening, we restored funds for Parks and Rec for the CIP for netting for security purposes down at Pequannock Plains Park. We have 2 more meetings left to go. Thursday and Monday remain. And again, thank you to the town manager, the staff, and also the town clerk and her staff for doing such a great job. I received communications from RTM members, residents at large from District 2 regarding the poor decorum issues at last week's town council meeting. I explained to them that as an ex officio member for the town council, I personally deliver their message that unprofessionalism and verbal harassment should not be tolerated and needs to stop. They communicated that those who continue to violate the established rules should be held accountable. It is yet to be done. Several people stated that this is not the positive example we want to set for our children or for our residents in Groton we swore oaths to serve as elected leaders. In addition, I submitted some previous comments from myself over the past few years documenting this persistent pattern. I also submitted the voting record of the last 3 town council rules votes. This identifies that one member of this group voted against the rules for the 32nd, 33rd, and 34th RTM. Most importantly, I'm submitting the rules that councilors should use to end disruptions. I have come to you, based on your communication last week, to have solutions. Here they are. Number 1, please refer the last incident, 5/7/24, last Tuesday, to the Rules and Procedures Committee for violations of Town Council Rule 8D1 and 8D3C. Document it for the record and include an appropriate remedy to the counselor for repeatedly interrupting proceedings and acknowledging on video that they violated town council rules. Number 2, request a referral to Rules and Procedures to change the language of citizens petition to exclude town council and of ex officio members from speaking. That privilege should be exclusive to the members of our community who are not able to speak throughout the rest of the meeting. RTM democratically made this change as well. Please follow our lead. And lastly, also please select a parliamentarian for this group, which is outlined under Town Council Rule 5G. If one of you cannot or unable to do it, I would willingly volunteer to serve this elected body of Groton. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. All right. We are on to approval of minutes. Counselor Gajewski, would you like to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes from approval of the April 23rd, 2024 minutes.
Second?
Moved by Gajewski, seconded by Bordelon. Are there any comments, concerns about the minutes? All right, I'm not seeing any. I will take a vote. 2024-463, April 23rd, 2024 minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Counselor McBride, I couldn't hear your vote, I'm sorry.
Yes, aye.
Okay, thank you. It is 8-0. On to new business. Counselor McBride, would you like to take the next one, or would you like to pass that off to Counselor Jones to read?
I'd like to pass,
Okay,
please.
thank you. Counselor Jones, would you like to take 2024-461?
Item 2024-461, FYE 2024 suspense list. The motion is to recommend a resolution to adopt the FYE 2024 suspension list. So moved.
Moved by Jones, seconded by Rusk. Thank you. Good evening. Would you like to introduce yourselves and give us a synopsis?
Good evening, Dee Morrison, Director of Finance. I have with me Melissa McGuire, our tax collector. Tonight, we have the 2024 suspense list for your approval. Do you want me to read any of the background?
Sure. We have
Sure.
plenty of new counselors that
Sure.
might.
Okay, so Connecticut state statute requires that at least once a year, the list be compiled of taxes that should be suspended. By placing these taxes on the suspense list, they will no longer be actively billed and thereby save the town postage, paper, toner, envelope expenses, in addition to time and effort that is involved in billing the accounts that have been determined to be uncollectible. However, the liability to the taxpayer is not negated, and the tax plus interest and penalties remains valid and collectible. So Melissa has put together a explanation for the change from last year to this year. You can see that the town amount is $715,454.63. Sewer district is $320.22. Mumford Cove is $1.98, for a total to be suspended of $715,776.83.
Hi there, Melissa
Hi.
McGuire, the tax collector for the town of Groton. As Dee said, as required by state statute, tax office submits a request for approval of our suspense list every year. The taxes are still collectible for 15 years as per state statute. The motor vehicle and personal property accounts are turned over to a collection agency in an effort to continue collection on our suspended delinquent taxes. A majority of the increased motor vehicle suspense request is for returned mail, people that have multiple billings remain unpaid, or have moved out of state. The sewer district suspense request is lower than last fiscal year because of fewer town-owned properties and a decreased number of accounts, companies that went out of business last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny, Councilor Bordelon?
Yes, my question is, I was just looking at this, and I know from being prior military and having a son that's in the military, when you move so much, you forget, like, even, I know we did one stint up in Maine, and even that short time messed up my tax roll for a little bit. And you forget, like, you might still owe a partial payment because of where you left in the year. And one of the things that they had was, they had a form that you could put a permanent address on there, like if I was to move, like send it here, like you could put like a family member or something, so that way bills would still be obtained. Do we have any, I mean, what percent of them do you think are military, if we're even having that kind of problem here?
So we have the initial chart that we went one by one that says by district. And if you notice in the right-hand column, right-hand side of the page, I did an estimate of how many I think are military based on like P.O. Box.
Yeah,
I don't think that was one of their attachments.
I don't think I have.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So it's roughly about 13%, 489 accounts. That's based on like one Crystal Lake Road, the military use on their motor vehicle all the time, and that's a bad address. Another reason why we like using the collection agency, they use skip tracing, so that military, they move multiple times, they'll be able to track down their address eventually, versus us, we don't pay in our budget for like LexisNexis, where you pay for a service to spend hours trying to find these people.
Yeah. So just one of the things that I saw, just when I was remembering back when I was preparing for this, was that they gave an option where you could, when you come enroll, right, initially, you're putting in for your taxes and, setting up whatever it is that you're going to be paying. You can put a secondary mailing address on there. And it just had a little disclosure on there that said, due to the high nature of being a military community, which we're excited to have, if you would like to give any more information, that could be forwarding as more of a permanent on top of, in the event, because military families move, and like I said, you're like, what? Oh my God, a dog license and so I don't know if there's a way, and I can bring that forward maybe. I don't know if the town manager wants me to make it a referral item, but maybe it might be a way that gives an extra way to capture something just in the off chance. Maybe that percent would go down to maybe 8%, I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately, every year, the DMV file comes from DMV.
Yep.
And that's where the address comes from. I don't believe they have a secondary address on there, so that's kind of our problem when
Yeah.
people even move not in military.
Right.
Another thing, we do have the postal service. We tell people do a change of address. I believe that might last a year.
Yeah.
Other than that, we do have, if they come in and file affidavits, if they're out-of-state residents, there is a phone number that the assessor's office can capture email addresses, and they can put another mailing address.
Gotcha.
But unfortunately, if we don't have an affidavit on file
Yeah.
for out-of-state residents or
Yeah.
state residents, unfortunately, the state affidavit, I believe, does not go in depth as the out-of-state one.
Yeah, I think for the form that I'm kind of remembering, it was when you were already making your first payment, so the DMV, you change your plates, and then when you kind of make your first payment with the town or the area that you're in, the form they tried to capture some extra information. just a thought, yes, DMV probably can't, but once, as a resident, you go in, and if you come in person or you're online, it says, click this box of military, if in the event, because, you do forget, right? Like the little car payment at the tail end, you can forward, here's a forwarding email that will always be in place. Please use this email, forward my last, what did it say? Check this box if you're military and put like an email address and forward any last statements to this. Because a lot of people don't change their email as frequently as you do your, like your address. So just a thought, if we have a chance to capture that, just by maybe adding it, maybe a thought. And again, if it has to be in a referral, I could write something up. But I appreciate all the work that you do. And for the military folks, if you are attached to an active duty submarine, you do get tax breaks as long as you get a letter from your Yeoman stating that you're attached. Is that for Connecticut state residents and out of state, or how does that work? Because some people may not know.
It's for both. I believe the assessor's office handles that mostly, so I really don't want to get too far into that.
Yeah.
But they do handle all the affidavits.
Right.
For both active duty and, Connecticut residents and out-of-state residents. They should definitely see the assessor's office.
Right, so some of these could be just a matter of the person didn't get the affidavit and it would be waived.
Correct.
So that's, and that was where that email thing, and I had to utilize that with Maine. I moved back here, and I had to and they sent it via email, and I mailed the affidavit, and the thing went away.
Right.
So, and that way you can use that email to say, hey, send us your affidavit if you're active duty, and we'll wipe this off. So, anyway, just a thought, but I appreciate all that you do. I know it's a very moving district, so it can be very hard. So I appreciate your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's new, so I'm going to remind all counselors that all questions have to come through the mayor. So as in Robert's Rules of Order, when there is discussion, comments should be directed towards the mayor, and all communications to guests or presenters should be brought through the mayor. So just a reminder, I know it's new. Counselor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the mayor to the treasurer, my question is, what is our success in collections?
Was that for the tax collector?
I guess so, or whoever can answer that
Okay,
question.
I'm sorry. What was the question?
What is our success in collecting this money? This is
Oh.
starting to grow.
We're about 99%, 98, 99,
Oh,
close to 99%.
Is he referring to the one?
Oh,
Are you specific on a specific one?
collection rate or,
no, what I'm noticing are the amount of the suspense list has grown to $715,000. I'm just wondering, do we have success in collecting it?
once we go to the collections, they send out letters every 3 weeks to people. They're constantly trying to find new addresses. And if you look at the chart, I thought I had provided, I guess I did not. We do very well in the collection agency collects money for us, or the taxpayer, if they're comfortable, can pay the town as well. But definitely it is worth, we don't pay anything for the collection agency. It's passed on to the customer. But we hold high collection rates because of, we're able to find these people and get these bills resolved, whether it's totally wiped out or they can adjust it in a timely manner. Because again, state statutes, you can only adjust a bill for so long.
Thank you.
So through the mayor, so I'm just wondering, so that 715,000 is sort of a temporary number that gradually comes down over the course of the year?
Correct.
And it just, because it seemed kind of worrisome that it's so high. So that was my question, just that it,
It's mostly this year because of the multiple billings. These people didn't have a current year tax bill for whatever reason. We do have a good mailing address for these people. We did go, for the suspense process, you see the number of accounts we're requesting is 3699. We go one by one and code every one of these accounts and look and see, are we billing them because we have a good mailing address, they don't have a current year bill, they moved out of state? Just trying to get a conversation going with the taxpayers so that we can work and resolve the problems and get these people back on track with 18% is statutorily, interest rate is what we have to charge, and that is very high. So we try to work with people and
Get that down.
get
Thank you.
it down and get these resolved.
Okay.
Do you have any further questions?
No, I do not.
All right, thank you. Counselor West, did you have your hands up?
I did.
Thank you.
Through the mayor, can I just ask on page 11 of our book, it's the FYE 2024 suspense list town. Starts with real estate, personal property, motor vehicle, supplemental motor vehicle, and totals on top. Can you please explain the fourth, or the last column, where in 2013, it says $1 and $449.50. Does that mean that there's only one outstanding bill? And is that still not paid from 2013, is my question. Like, can you explain kind of that whole?
So the real estate, it varies as to why we're requesting the suspense. It could be a mobile home where the person was evicted through the court proceedings and the town, our liens are extinguished. It could be the town took over the property where we're not going to go after the town for our own money. So that is basically the reasons why these are being requested for suspense. It's either uncollectible via our lien was extinguished, which in this case went back to 2013
Okay, thank
to
you.
current.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Counselor Gieske?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through the mayor, I'm going to head back to page 11. Is that, I'm looking at that 2013 through 2015, is that potentially the same property, and it's just because it's in possibly court receivership, or?
It could be the same, we could have from 2013 to 22, that person could have a mobile home through all those years and just being evicted through the court proceedings.
Okay, and then a follow-up question through the mayor. If it's, I'm trying to understand this because I'm, you know, if we are suspending these, they're still obligated to pay them, but we're just not going to be contacting them. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, on real estate, it's different. So on a court eviction, on a mobile home, our liens are extinguished. We cannot go after them because we would have been required to bid on that in order not to continue our lien, and we don't want to own that. On real estate that the town took ownership of, I believe there was 3 properties this year. So again, that's adding to that request for real estate to put that on suspense, because as of October 1 of 22, that was in a different owner's name. Now the town owns it, so we really can't collect on ourselves.
Got it. And then through the mayor, I want to talk about motor vehicles. Why is it, I just kind of having an idea of why it's so high. Because 1,748 vehicles, $374,000, it seems like a lot to me. I'm just kind of curious of why that could be.
Yeah, it is because of, like I said, the multiple billings. They didn't have a current year bill. We do have a good mailing address on these people. For whatever reason, they're not paying their previous year or 2-year bills. They've been mailed delinquent statements multiple times with no contact to pay. So that's the reason why that went up. Return mail, that did increase a couple hundred. We do have a large exorbitant amount of return mail in our office. We've seen across the board, if you looked at out-of-state as well, increased from the year before by like 40. Deceased was up by 50. If we do code these suspense and they're still collectible, we will make every effort to collect them. And the collection agency will be finding them and sending them letters every 3 weeks to say, hey, your bill is still here, you still owe the town of Groton, please, contact us to pay.
Okay, and then through the mayor, I don't know who this is going to be directed to, our town collection, the collection agency we use, what is their recovery what is, is it better some years to recover taxes than others? And could you give some insight into their processes that the town is not doing?
So they mail out bills every 3 weeks. What we're not doing is skip tracing. If we don't have a good address, like for the return mail, just for example, in your pie chart, if you look at return pieces of mail is 1742. That's the number of accounts we had come back. We billed these people twice. The mail came back twice at postage of how much does a postage cost. So actually it went out 3 times, the initial bill plus 2 delinquent statements. And that's kind of why return mail, we're asking to suspend that, because we have checked the DMV. We've checked to see if they've paid online, to see if they've given us an email, a good mailing address to find these people. Multiple billings, I don't know why people aren't paying and why they don't have a current year bill. Again, 3 pieces of mail have gone out. Just trying to do cost savings, trying to use our office staff wisely and efficiently. We recycle wherever we can, save where we can. And I can't think of anything else, but also Dee wanted me to mention too, we could be seeing an increase as well, as the state had during COVID had changed from a 2-year registration to a 3-year registration. That was phased in. So now we could be seeing the possible bubble here that it's now coming out. That's a possibility. I don't know. That's a guess.
And
Thank you.
so basically, if someone has an active registration, but they owe taxes, they might be holding off on paying those taxes until they have to renew their registration. So, unfortunately.
Counselor Gajewski, do you have any more questions?
I yield back to you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Counselor Bordelon?
Through the mayor, I was just going to say the same point, that there is an increase, and I was reading some actual stuff about that. And when doing my research and looking at this, actually, I know some may think these numbers are high. I think a 99% collection rate, I say, awesome job to you guys for the work that you do, because some of the billing that I'm doing at my own job, the rates are, it's tough. And we're coming off of COVID, so people are. So you figure that 3-year hold now that's being extended, folks might be saying, you know what, I don't have that extra money right now, so I'm going to hold that money and pay it when I have to at the later date. So this also, there was talks of rates, numbers. So our numbers actually look really good. And if you look at, the 1,742 people, what is postage stamps, almost, I don't even know, 60, 70 cents now, just about, it feels, if not more. I still have the forever stamps that I'm trying to get through from many years ago, so I forget what the postage is. But 3 times on that, you're looking at almost $3,000 depending on your numbers. So I think it is appropriate to stop that when we're already paying a collection agency who can take the lead on that. So I just want to commend you guys for your hard work, and I think the numbers, we'd love to see those numbers come back, but they are rolling, and we are coming off of tough times that, now we would be seeing that 3-year change, post-COVID, and some other factors in there. So I think the numbers to me look actually remarkable in comparison to some other towns, without saying any names. Did look, and their collection rates were much less than a 99%, sometimes in the 80s. So just know that we're doing a really good job here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Town Manager Byrd, did you have any comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I'm looking through past year's suspense lists, and they do jump all over the place. For instance, the 19th suspense list, which has the 17 taxes, there was almost 1,700 motor vehicles on that list, over 500,000 for the total cost. So it jumps all around. It could be 300,000, 400,000, back to 3. It goes all over the place.
Thank you.
Could I have a point of clarification?
Your point of information?
I just wanted, it was stated that we pay for the collection agency. It says in here that we don't pay for it. Is that correct?
That is correct. The
Thank you.
taxpayer pays 15%. The town does not pay anything. We don't pay on the postage. It's all passed on to the customer.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that my understanding was correct. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other hands, we will vote on 2024-461, the FYE 2024 suspense list. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 8-0. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for all you do and the great collection rate you have. Up next is 2024-453, the Master Municipal Agreement for Design Projects. Counselor Rusk, would you like to take that?
Yes. Motion to recommend a resolution authorizing the town manager, John Burt, to execute the agreement entitled Master Municipal Agreement for Design Projects. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Russ, seconded by Pacino. Mr. Burt, are you going to give us the
Good evening.
presentation?
This is very similar to one you looked at about a month ago with the right-of-way agreement. This is boilerplate from the Department of Transportation. Last time you looked at right-of-way agreements, this time it's design services. In the past, when you put a whole contract to the AG's office, it could take months and months to get it back. What they started doing at the DOT is there's certain parts that are the same every time. They got that pre-approved, and they just have to enter the agreement with us so that when you get into projects, instead of the AG have to review everything, it's a smaller piece, which speeds the process up. This cannot be changed. This just gets us through projects faster.
Okay. Counselor Bordelon?
Yeah, through the mayor to the town manager. So what, in this agreement actually changed from the previous, like, right away? What things in here are like kind of enhanced, I guess?
Mr. Burt?
Nothing has
Nothing.
changed. Just like with the one we did with the right-of-way recently, that was the same, just renewing it. This one, there's no changes to anything we've done. This is design versus the right-of-way. I think there's gonna be a third thing coming too, so you'll probably see another thing in a few weeks.
Through the mayor to the town manager. I guess when you stated that this one would speed things up, that's why I was trying to find out what the difference from the previous ones that we've had.
Well, the way it speeds it up is if you don't have this agreement, and now you're required to anyways, but in the past, let's say you had how many pages are here? Let's say you have 20 pages of legalese. In the past, they would have to do this at the AG's office for review each and every time, plus anything that changes on a project. This just deletes 20 pages of review. So it just saves a lot of time at the AG's office to get it back to us, because they review every agreement.
Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, not seeing any other hands. Let's take a vote on 2024-453, the Master Municipal Agreement for Design Projects. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 8-0. Up next is 2024-260-3, Small Cities Community Development Block Grant. Counselor Pacino, would you like to take that?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion to recommend the resolution authorizing Town Manager John Burt to execute all necessary forms to apply for and receive Community Development Block Grants funds on behalf of Mystic River Homes.
Second.
Moved by Pacino, seconded by Rusk. All right, I guess I'm not seeing any questions, so we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8-0. So we're going to take a recess from the committee of the whole and go into the town council's special meeting. It is 7:14 for the recess. And we are beginning our special meeting at 7:14. Doing roll call, all are present except Counselor Parker. All right, new business is 2024-260-4, the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant. Counselor Gajewski, would you like to take that one?
What page is it on?
It's on
It's
the,
on this.
Oh,
Thank
And-
you.
Mr. Burt?
Just as a reminder, that when you have resolutions inside the packet, you only have to read the title and the result. You don't have to, actually, in the packet, you don't have to read that, but that's usually the, kind of what we do.
Mr. Manager, I did not get that. Resolution authorizing the submission of a small cities community development block grant application for Mystic River Homes. Be it resolved that the contract agrees and warrants that in the performance of the contract, such contractor will. So moved. Oh, no, never mind, sorry. Resolution authorizing the submission of small cities community development block grant application for Mystic River Homes. Be it resolved by the town council of the town of Groton that it is cognizant of the conditions of the prerequisites of the state financial assistance imposed by Part VI-4, Chapter 130 of the Connecticut General Statute, and two, that the filing of application for state financial assistance by the town manager in the amount not exceed $2 million is hereby approved, and that John Burt, town manager, is hereby authorized and directed to file such application with the Commissioner of the Department of Housing to provide such additional information, to execute such other documents as may be required by the Commissioner, to execute an assistance agreement with the State of Connecticut for financial assistance if such agreement is offered, to execute any amendments, recessions, and revisions thereto, to implement project activities if approved, and to act as to authorize representative of the town of Groton, and to execute any other agreement or contract relevant to said project. Three, that it adopts or has adopted on behalf of the town of Groton policy to support the following non-discrimination agreements and warranties provided in subsection A-J of Connecticut General Statute Sections 4A60, 4A60A, respectively as amended by Public Act 071402, and for which purposes the contractor is the town of Groton and the contract is said assistance agreement. The contractor agrees and warrants that in the performance of the contract, such contractor will not discriminate or permit discrimination against any person, group of persons on the grounds of race, color, religious creed, age, marital status, national origin, ancestry, sex, mental retardation, or physical disability, including but not limited to blindness, unless it is shown by such contractor that such disability prevents performance of the work involved in any matter prohibited by the laws of the United States or of the state of Connecticut. The contractor further agrees to take affirmative action to ensure that applicants with job-related qualifications are employed and that employees are treated without regard to their race, color, religious creed, age, marital status, national origin, ancestry, sex, mental retardation, or physical disability, including but not limited to blindness, unless it is shown by such contractor that such disability prevents performance of the work involved. The contractor agrees and warrants that in the performance of the contract, such contractor will not discriminate or permit discrimination against any person or group of persons on the grounds of sexual orientation in any manner prohibited by the laws of the United States or the state of Connecticut, and that employee so moved.
Second.
Moved by Gajewski, seconded by Bordelon. Well, not seeing any hands. Counselor Bordelon?
Through the mayor, just want to say in general that I think this is, as I stated before, any opportunity to be able to get these competitive grants to help, our community is great, and it's not free money, but it definitely is a way that will help our community, so it's very welcomed. And when, I guess through the mayor to the town manager, when will we know exactly, is this actually already confirmed, I guess? We're definitely getting, or is this one that we're just still in limbo on, waiting to?
It'd be better to answer by Pete Bronk if you want to pull him up.
Mr. Bronk? Come on down. Good evening.
Good evening, Paige Brock, Economic and Community Development Manager. There isn't a hard deadline regarding when the state will notify us. It actually has been getting later and later every year. We anticipate it would be fall, could be as late as winter.
Thank you.
So, through the mayor to Mr. Brock, so that's when we'll know. So this, we're just in the filing phase, and we haven't fully been awarded it yet.
That is correct.
Okay.
We have not been awarded. We're in a competitive process at this point. So I think the state will first determine whether or not our application is complete and also whether or not we qualify with all their prerequisites. And then once that happens, they go through the review.
All right. I just think it's great and hope that we are the recipients. Thank you for your hard work.
Okay, not seeing any other hands. We'll take a vote on the 2024-260-4 Small Cities Community Development Block Grant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I don't see Counselor McBride.
He's not up there. Oh, there he is.
Counselor McBride, we're taking a vote on the 2024-260-4 Small Cities Community Development Block Grant, passing it in the Town Council. How do you vote?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Passes 8-0. We are recessing the Town Council at 7:21.
Adjourn.
Excuse me?
My apologies, but do you need to adjourn the town council meeting?
We could adjourn it or recess it. I
Just-
don't think it.
I'm just asking for clarification, sorry.
This one would be adjourned.
Okay, we'll adjourn it, the Town Council. Do we need to take a vote on that, Mr. Burt?
Same as you would, yes.
Okay, so I need a motion.
Motion for adjournment?
Second.
Moved by Jones, seconded by Rusk. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8-0. It is 7:22 for adjournment. We are now going to reconvene the Committee of the Whole back at 7:22. Up next is 2024-466 Police Tower Land Lease Agreement. Counselor Merritt, would you like to read this one? Just the motion on the bottom.
On 2024-466, Police Tower Land Lease Agreement, the motion to recommend a resolution setting a public hearing for July 2nd, 2024 for the land lease between the Town of Groton and Phoenix Partnership LLC for maintenance and use of the communication facility located in and around the Town of Groton Police Department.
Second.
Moved by Merritt, seconded by Rusk. Good evening.
Evening, Madam Mayor, Council. I'm Chief L.J. Fazaro. We've got several people up here, so it'd probably be best if we all introduce ourselves.
Yes,
Good
please.
evening, David Ball. I'm a partner with the law firm Cohen & Wolf, and I represent Phoenix Partnership.
I'm Doug Roberts. I'm an architect, and I represent Phoenix as well.
Eric Callahan from Sussman Shapiro, the Town Attorney's Office.
Captain James B. with the Police Department. So just a brief explanation. As you know, at the police station, we have a rather large tower. We actually have two towers there that house our transmission equipment for our radio system. It also has some antennas that support Fisher's Island as well as some other entities. For some time, we've had leases on that tower by communications companies. We were approached some time ago by our friends at Phoenix here to consider maybe adding things to this. They were through the negotiations that certainly Attorney Callahan can talk about regarding the town's position on this. It seems like a good position for us. It will enable them to do what they're looking to do. It will somewhat enhance the tower structure that we already have through some modest improvements, and I think the best part for the community, it will negate the need for a tower elsewhere in the town. So the police department's supportive of it. We think it's probably a good partnership. With that, I think we'd be willing to entertain any questions unless any of my colleagues up here have any comments they'd like to make.
No, happy to answer any questions that you have or to walk you through the lease.
And
whatever your pleasure.
Thank you, and I will just add, I think the council's aware that Dish Network had been exploring a site in Noank on Marshall Road that was met with a good amount of opposition, and by going onto the police department tower, that will solve Dish's needs for added coverage. So it seems to be a win-win for the town and for Dish as well.
Okay. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through the mayor. My basic question is, we're enhancing the existing towers, not building new towers. Is that correct?
I think our architect might be best suited for this.
Yeah, Doug Roberts. Yeah, we did a structural, recent structural as well as an inventory over the past 2 or 3 months. Also, an additional geotechnical investigation was performed on site to look at if we can improve some of the soil characteristics of the existing design that was there. Right now, the tower itself is about a little less than 110% of the Dish network system antennas on at a 150-foot rad center. With that, we also included the Verizon dish that they had entertained, as well as a 6-foot dish that the town is looking to place on that tower. The design modifications for the tower is being worked on as we speak. It's roughly about 40 feet of legs that are between the node points that need to be reinforced, and that's our position right now for that.
Through the mayor, so I know just driving by, you can see one tower that has a lot of stuff on it. Where is the second tower? Is it lower to the one side?
It is. There's a smaller tower, older tower that's been there for a number of years that doesn't really function, well, really doesn't have much of a function anymore.
Yeah, it houses some Coast Guard auxiliary channels. There's a short, the ham radio operators in the area have an antenna off of there. Some of our medics do have some antennas up there, and there's some simple receive antennas up there for some of our legacy system.
Through the mayor, so the new dish thing will go on the existing, the big tower that we see from the road. So, okay, all right, thank you.
Councilor Rusk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of questions through the mayor. Can you please walk us through the rent? I realize it says here the existing subtenants, 85% of the rent received, and then there's a couple other categories, so if I could ask about that. And then also removal at the end of the lease. Is that part of this? Removal.
I'm sorry, Counselor, I didn't hear the last part of your question.
Oh, removal.
Oh, sure. So within section 4 of the lease, which starts on page 91 of your packet, goes on to page 92, there are existing tenants on the tower, and then there's a mechanism in this lease where the Phoenix Partnership can enter into new leases as well, or extend the leases of the existing tenants. For any existing tenant, for the remaining term of their lease, the town would receive 85% of that rental income, and the Phoenix Partnership would receive 15%. For any new subtenants, so tenants that are not currently on the tower, the town would receive 60% of that income, and Phoenix Partnership 40%, with the exception of Dish Wireless or any of its affiliates, which would be 100% retained by Phoenix Partnership. And then if Phoenix extends or increases the rent of any existing lease, the town would get 60% of that. So, for example, if there's an existing tenant that's currently paying $100 a month, the town would receive $85 of that 100. And if Phoenix increases the rent to $200 a month, the town would receive the first 85 and then 60 from the second 100 from that scenario.
And then, through the mayor, removal at the end of the lease, are all of the tenants responsible for removing their own property?
Yeah, so the leases that are entered into with each tenant would dictate what happens with their equipment. And yes, generally, those subtenants have to remove their equipment. With regard to the tower itself, there's language in this lease where the town can purchase the tower back from Phoenix for $10 at the end of the relationship, so that the town is not left without a tower.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you. Counselor Bordelon?
Thank you. First, I guess I want to say thank you for coming and considering. My first question, it would be helpful, I think, definitely if not, I mean, maybe we don't have it now, but maybe for the public hearing, a lot of people are visual, right? So, kind of, it might not be a perfect sketch, but what is it visually going to look like? What is the change? Because I can't see that. And people have asked me, hey, can you show me in comparison how many feet, there's been no drawing renderings that have been presented to us. I don't know if you guys have any. That's my first question to the mayor.
The answer would be no, we haven't. We've been concentrating on the structural. It'll be a 10-foot extension to that tower. And if you looked at the tower right now, you have Verizon and AT&T that are roughly 10 foot apart. So if you place Dish on top of Verizon, that's the extent of the extension itself. But we can have drawings.
Thank you. I think that would be just helpful for people to see, because it might be, some people are thinking, oh my God, it's gonna be a major impact, and it might be very simple and minuscule when you actually see it, so I appreciate that. As well as, what if this company, Phoenix, goes bankrupt? Where's the protection in this agreement? How are we protected as a town if, Phoenix decides to pull out or was to go bankrupt? What happens? Does this agreement have to be renegotiated with the new owners, or if they sell, where do we stand with that?
So we did leave in the mechanism where if this terminates, so if it's terminated by bankruptcy or expiration or any other situation, the town can regain its tower. And in terms of the agreement itself, there is a mechanism in here where the only permitted assignment is to some other company with a net worth, I think it's $85 million. And so, if it goes to a bankruptcy court, the court will ultimately decide what will happen, but we believe we have protections in here to terminate the agreement and, reclaim the tower and everything that's in it.
Okay. Through the mayor, my other question is, if they sold, would these numbers stick, or would we have to renegotiate after certain years? Or how, if, Phoenix sold to Joey and, Joey's company, and would these numbers and agreements in here extend to the end of this term, or would we have to renegotiate at that time?
No, there wouldn't need to be renegotiation. This lease, which has an initial term of 5 years with 9 extension terms of 5 years each, so it's a potential of a 50-year relationship. The terms that are within this agreement last for the duration of the term. So if they, under your example, if they sold it to somebody else, they couldn't come in and say, we don't want you to get 85% of existing leases, it should only be 70. This is binding.
This would be binding. Okay, thank you. And through the mayor, in here, what I read, there are protections for any type of vandalism or storm damage or any of that. That is covered by Phoenix.
Well, there's insurance that's in place, and once they assume the leases, it's their responsibility to safeguard the towers.
Okay. And if in the event that the company, I'm not saying that you won't, but if the company did not, right, uphold that end, then we could have a chance to pull out at that point if we had to. Like any good landlord, if you're not upholding your end of the lease and you're not giving, the people are finding, the renters are saying, I'm not getting what I was told I was going to get. So how do we negotiate those concerns?
Well, there are mechanisms in here to notice a default of the lease. As an additional layer of protection, the Phoenix may receive financing to finance its improvements to the towers. And so there's language in here as well, that if Phoenix is in default, we'll also send the lender a notice of default, and either of them can cure it, but if neither of them do, then we can terminate the lease.
Perfect. And then my last question is through the mayor. There's some of the concerns with no ink. I mean, everybody had all different kinds of opinions naturally, but concerns were health hazards, noise, and other things. Where's our health protection, since it's right here where more than half of our students are housed 8 hours a day or less between, the high school, Rosso, and the middle school. Is there any health concerns, just to clear some of that stuff? Is there anything we should be concerned about? What type of stuff is being emitted off of these that one should be concerned about?
I could probably address that. This will have to go to the Connecticut Siting Council for a tower share. And with that, they have to do a power density study, which basically takes all the emissions off that tower and adds theirs to that, and that's what gives you your power density study. And that has a threshold limit that has to not be exceeded. So every tower that we have basically has that in the state, threshold limit.
And through the mayor, so then where are we at with our threshold currently, and how much more can we go, technically? The expectation of the growth, can it house what you guys are anticipating based on that power threshold?
Sure. Quite honestly, the original information that was provided by Dish had their rad center at a lower height, which was roughly 10 feet below AT&T, which puts their antennas and radiation patterns much closer to the ground. In this case, we're 10 feet higher, so it'll be less than that. I don't have that information, but I know it did pass on the original one, which was actually lower to the ground.
I guess through the mayor or through the mayor to the town manager, if you could possibly send those readings over so that we, it'd be interesting to know. And then the last question through the mayor, to the presenter, how does that numbers look when it's on next to a building like that? So where the police are being housed, I mean, if that was in my yard, I'd be getting a really direct exposure. So I'm just wondering, how far out of a radius, is that something's being omitted, even though it's at the allowable limit, right?
Sure.
But it's amazing that we still have allowable limit for lead in our water. So how far out is that being extended?
Yeah, all good points. I always like to look at it as a lighthouse. You probably could have a hard time reading a newspaper at the base of a lighthouse because the light wants to be projected outwards to where people need that. And that's similar to how the radiation patterns work on these antennas. They're meant to go out, a mile, 3/4 of a mile from each tower, and not go down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Gajewski? Oh, I'm sorry. Counselor Pacino was next. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through the mayor, I just have one question. Who's currently maintaining the tower? Who's currently maintaining the tower? Who's doing the job that Phoenix wants to do?
We maintain it. I mean, it's part of the town's infrastructure. There are leases on, there's renters currently on that tower, but quite often we have tower climbers coming quite often to maintain it.
Right now, we're responsible for anything a storm damages the tower. The town is responsible right now.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much.
Counselor Gieske?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lots of discussion. I just want to make sure I'm understanding everything correctly. So there are currently 2 towers on the property. One is not really used. It's by the Coast Guard. And then the other one is the one that Phoenix will be maintaining through the mayor. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the changes that Phoenix will be making is adding a 10-foot extension to the tower that is going to be the main tower that's being used?
That is correct.
Correct. And then the admissions goes a mile out, correct?
Yeah, the propagation for that, a mile to a mile and a half.
Okay. And then, what is through the mayor, what is the current number of tenants on the tower?
I don't know if our attorney has that, or if Captain B does off the top of their head. There's several of them, and we've got,
It's either 3 or 4.
There's 3, so we have.
3, okay.
We have Verizon, AT&T, and then Fisher's Island Telephone. There was Fisher's Island Internet, but they recently pulled their equipment off the tower.
And then the town as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
our police and fire radios are on there.
And then through the mayor, with the Phoenix agreement, how many more will be added on?
To my knowledge, it's just Dish Network.
Just- And then also through the mayor, what is the capability of number of tenants on the agreement? Or if the addition of the tower?
I think that's based on the structural analysis that comes out, what they can put for additional towers. We do have an interest in potentially adding another antenna on there to support our radio system that for redundancy. As you know, our radio system is part of the state system, so we've long had a desire to add another microwave antenna on there. We're not quite there yet, but my understanding is that part of this, it would be capable of housing that as well. So I without having,
Yes, no large structural that we did included that dish.
Okay. And then, question for the town attorney, through the mayor. What is the potential if, does Phoenix have the option to expand the tower more, or do we have to go into another agreement if they want to expand an additional 10 feet?
Well, I think, one, they'd have to go to the siting council, and two, the agreement says what the permissible expansion is.
Okay.
Just to add something about one of your earlier questions, Counselor, there is language in the lease about the town receiving preference as to the location of its equipment and any of the state-related equipment. And there's also language that the tenants can't interfere with the town's equipment.
Okay.
In terms of the frequencies.
And then, my last question through the mayor, the town is currently maintaining it. Is there a taxpayer savings for, the town that would maintain it? Or is it gonna be, net neutral based on the rental agreement?
Well, yeah, not that I believe we have too much cost, but we will have some savings. And when you look at the leases, you see it in here that we only received about $23,000. Last year, it's not a lot of rent. We'll still, I think right off the bat, it's only a $3,500 drop in the leases. And that might have even included that $23,000 include the fourth lease. So anyways, there'll be a little savings, but I imagine that it'd be about neutral at first, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Bordelon.
Thank you. It was talked about the radio frequencies and all that, and it was talked that obviously our town police department might want to add another dish. Is there a concern at all that would be maxed by the time that that's needed, or is that being taken into consideration? Because
forgive me,
I can start answering that. I think their analysis included all the stuff that we had anticipated, so I don't see there being any concerns.
Point of, if my time could be paused.
Oh, sorry.
Please, thank you.
Yeah, as far as a dish, that's, the emissions off a dish is quite different than a cellular carrier, because they're looking point to point, 30,
Yeah.
sometimes 30, 40 miles away. So the emissions on a dish are very, very small in comparison. Our structural analysis included that dish, and at the highest point that your consultant said they were looking for. I've been talking to them, so we've accounted for that in our design, in our mod.
And through the mayor, my question, how many feet is the tower now, and what will it bring it to with the addition on top of it?
It's a 140-foot tower with Verizon on a rotatable platform at the very top. Their antennas are roughly 143 foot on center. So for similar to the town's lease about interference, the carriers try to maintain a minimum of 10 feet in between so that they don't interfere with each other. So it would basically put Dish on a 10 to 12 foot extension with the top of their rad center at 153.
Thank you for that clarification. I guess through the mayor, I mean, everything comes with a cost and there's always the concerns, right? I know knowing they didn't want it with all the health and the height and everything like that. Here, we already have the height that we're using, so how much more frequency and omission, outward are we increasing by technically, by then what we already have there?
I'd be really hard pressed to say. If it was just a cellular tower where we had, 4 carriers or 3 carriers and 1 got added, the cumulative isn't added. It's a logarithmic kind of equation. But because we have state police, town, I wouldn't even venture to guess.
Through the mayor, when will we have those numbers?
Well, we have right now to finalize our structural redesign and then get our dish to update their numbers for that. So I would imagine within the next 30 days.
And through the mayor, I guess for me, folks have reached out and, said their concerns, like everything, as we evolve, we utilize more of everything, cars and everything, but we know that there's emissions, but we got to get to work. So there are people that are concerned about the health and safety of that in the area naturally. So those are just with some concerns. So I'm just interested to see what those numbers do look like and what that effect, if there really is even much of a change, if it's really only emitting a small fraction, it's already been there kind of thing. So that's what I was trying to kind of mirror and see. But I think it would be great to have those numbers and know. And some other plans when I researched, like looking at the omissions, because people did approach me about the medical concern and health concern. Some of the drawings that were presented, they would show, okay, here's a tower and here's about how far off the radius. Will we have any of those renderings presented to us for our residents?
We could look into that, sure.
Okay. I mean, I think as much as, we have to accept some of these things, I think it's really important to be open about what's coming off there. Like, we live in a naval community. We have nuclear-powered submarines going up and down the river. So, I mean, there's some things we accept, but I think it's important to kind of know. And some people have been asking, and I know it has to be legally posted, right, on the state's pages. Is that correct? The state, once they determine what that bandwidth and that's all on the state.
It'll be part of the application for a tower share by Dish on that. So it's all public knowledge, and they do tests, I've been doing this for 30 years, I guess. Actually worked on this tower right here that we're talking about today in the 90s. But, only in one instance in my whole career did I have, and we had monitors where it would sense at 50% of the threshold, and that was ironically at the airport. And Bradley, on the rooftop where you have all the radar for the planes, most of the time it's 10, 12%. It's not like we're at 90%. And, I've done towers that had 6, 7 carriers, and they're all very, very small.
And through the mayor, I just was simply just, I get the questions, I just like to ask it for the public, and so I do my due diligence and say, I asked, here's what I got. And I thank you for your comments, and I look forward to seeing what that, you explain how many feet, visually it's gonna look. I guess my last question, with the airport being there, will there be any new standards that have to be given to the airport with that extension?
Yes, matter of fact, tomorrow we're doing a check on the actual tower height of the existing tower, and we have to refile with the FAA for the additional height. So that's some of the driving force is, we can't make it 180-foot tower to put more people higher, because we do have an airport nearby that will affect that.
Yeah, through the mayor, thank you for that, and that was my last question. It was, some people asked me about air control and how that would look in the application process for that. So, thank you so much for your time.
All right, I don't see any more hands. So I will just say I'm very happy that we came to a resolution to help get the tower out of Noank and up here to a tower we already have and be able to utilize it even better. And I'm happy that the town could help facilitate this. And with that, I think we'll take a vote on 2024-466, Police Tower Land Lease Agreement. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm going to abstain because I didn't have all the information for tonight. So.
Counselor McBride, I didn't hear your vote.
I was an aye, thank you.
Thank you. That passes 7-0 to 1. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to take a little recess here before we get going on our next item. It is 7:51. We'll take about a 10-minute break. Okay, we're back from recess at 8:06. Our next item of business is 2024-468, the Shore Avenue Seawall Reconstruction Project. I believe that it is on beginning on page 112 in our packet. And Counselor Gajewski, would you like to move the motion?
Motion to approve the.
Your microphone?
Motion to recommend a resolution to the town council to approve 1.4 million from American Rescue Plan ARPA funds for the city of Groton for the Shore Avenue Seawall Reconstruction Project and to forward to the representative town meeting for approval. So moved.
Second, Jones.
Moved by Gajewski, second by Jones.
I'll do just a little bit of intro, if that's okay. Just as a reminder, the city had previously put in the request for the 1.4 million out of ARPA funds. The town council set it aside, reserved it for this purpose. It still has to go through the formal approval process. And as you know, per the state act concerning the city, as well as Groton Long Point, the town has certain obligations towards highways. I consulted with Greg Hanover, our public works director. He did consider this, since it holds up the road, to be under what would fall under that act. So I just want to kind of give our little bit of background to it. And there is a white paper in there on the second page, page 113, that goes over the details of the actual construction project.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Hendrick. Would you like to say anything about the seawall? Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Town Council. We've talked about the Shore Avenue seawall before. The total cost of the project is $4,132,136.30. I'm asking for the $1.4 million that was previously discussed, and then the overage will be paid for by the city. I didn't want to complicate things by coming back for additional funds. We had a kickoff meeting last week. We will install signs next week for traffic control and restriction of traffic. We will start work on the contractor will start work the week of the 28th, and then the cofferdam will go in the first week of June, and then we have to have the cofferdam in, according to DEP, to protect the eelgrass between the 20th of June and the end of October, beginning of November. So they'll be working, we have authorization from the DEP to work inside the cofferdam and work on the retaining wall, and then rebuild the retaining wall. So that's basically what the project's will be. All the local residents have been alerted. Everybody on, basically from Meach all the way down to from Meach all the way down to Beach Pond Road and all those side streets in there and along Eastern Point Road, all the residents have been notified of the work, the construction work that's going to happen and the potential impact on traffic. So that's that. Unless you have other questions.
Thank you. I'll open up to the council. Councilor Pacino.
Just a curiosity question. How long is it going to take? Through the mayor.
Is that through the mayor?
That's through the mayor.
All right. The project is slated for 180 days.
Oh, wow.
180 days.
That's not long.
No, but they will be able to meet this. Their means and methods have been approved by DEP, and they will be able to meet it. There is a clause in the contract that if they do not meet that, there is a penalty for them, daily penalty. But when we met with them, we talked about lots of different scenarios, including hurricanes and those kind of things, and there are contingencies built for protections and protections of the seawall, and then protections of the construction area during those things, and they should still be able to make 180 days.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It'll be awesome when it's done.
Counselor Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Welcome, Mayor Hendricks.
Thank you.
Through the mayor. My question is, will there be any closing of the road?
Yes. So what we're going to do is at the top of Meach and at the top of Tyler, the top of Beach Vine Road, there will be in Central, there will be road closure signs there, local traffic only. And then when you get closer, there will be signs that says closed. And it's basically going to be closed. The road will be closed just north of where the stone pier is. So if you're familiar with that area where the stone pier, that'll be closed there. And then it will be closed where South Prospect goes back in there, in front of Michael and Suzanne Meyer's house, the Auerbachs and the Couture's house. It'll be closed right in that area there. So that'll be a construction site. There will be fencing that will be installed in the construction site so that walkers and just general people cannot go into the construction site anytime. So we're doing that, they're doing that out of a sense of safety and protection. We're going to put some fencing along the bottom line of the bottom part of the golf course. We've already reached out and talked to the golf course and talked to Mark Berry about that. And then that way people can still walk there if they want to, but it'll be out of the construction site and it will not be in line of the golfers.
Through the mayor, I noticed we're going to be increasing some of the size of the pipes. It's an opportunity. Reinforced concrete pipe, you're going from 12 inches to 15 inches.
Right, that's the drainage part.
Drainage pipes.
Of the,
Are there other utilities that run through that ground, I guess?
There are. So there's I think it's a 10-inch water pipe. There's a 9 or a 10-inch gravity sewer main. And then there's I think it's 14 or more inch forced sewer main coming from the pump station at Eastern Point. They're going to be digging test pits to make sure they know exactly where those are, comparing to the CAD drawings, so that they put measures in place so that there will not be any disruption to those pipes during deconstruction and then during construction, because they're going to be drilling in and putting pilings in there in order to support that and to support the seawall. In addition to that, I've had internal meetings with GU staff, specifically the wastewater guys, to put measures in place to try to mitigate any issues should there be a breakage of that line, meaning try to have it pump down as much as possible so the pump doesn't kick on and spray sewage if there is a break in the asbestos-containing concrete piping that's in there.
Through the mayor, my last question is, I noticed in the pictures that we have, we currently...
Let me just ask, Mr. Manager, can you put some of the pictures online so people at home can see some of the pictures in our packet? I'm sorry, Counselor Jones, you can continue.
No, it's fine, that's a good idea.
Give me a moment, please.
Sure, go ahead, you can continue.
So through the mayor, so currently you have an iron fence, an iron pipe fence that runs along that seawall.
Right.
Are you going to be keeping that kind of fence, or are you going to raise a concrete barrier, or what are you going to do sort of above ground?
So if you look at the construction drawings, I think it's 2 feet high that it goes up. That's going to be concrete. It's going to be cast concrete, and then it'll be on the inside on the wall facing the road. It'll be stamped, and then on top of that there will be That's easy, gonna move.
It might.
All right, I'll be careful. So this is going to be replaced with other railings that's going to be there. And then that's going to be mounted into the concrete that's going to be there. So what you have behind here, what you see here, this is the concrete facade that was done in the mid-1900s. I don't know how thick this is, but underneath, we have pieces of granite. The original seawall was granite, and then it was faced. And that's breaking apart, but what you, in the areas that you can see here, you can actually, I can go in, and I can lay on my back and stick my arm under and not touch anything. So one of the things that is driving this is we're concerned, thank you, that's a very good picture here, is the concern that the tide is undermining this, and we want to replace this before the weight of the wall forces collapse of this retaining wall and therefore roadway.
Okay.
Does that address your?
It does, and then through the mayor, then above the wall, you're going up 2 feet now from the.
So
that's
this is
basically the
going up,
road
this is going to
surface
be,
right
I
now.
think, if I remember the drawing correctly, this goes up 2 feet, and then there's going to be a railing above that. But we're concerned about, safety and people falling through and those kinds of things.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Mayor, would you like me to take that off the screen or leave it on?
Can you show all the pictures, just so people at home can see the pictures?
Show it, Mr.
What
Bacon.
we've received?
Actually, let me even go.
Counselor Bordelon?
Here you can see that red circle. You'll see where the project's taking place along Shore Ave. Down here's Eastern Point Beach. There you saw that picture. Mayor Hedrick just spoke about that. You can see a little bit closer up there, the undermining of the face there. I think that's it, yep.
All right, thank you. Counselor Bordelon?
Thank you. First question to the mayor. Do you have a diagram, or we have like how it looks now, but do you have what it will look like when it's complete?
We have a diagram in the city.
Could that be dispersed through the town manager to us so that we can kind of see what we're?
Sure.
It would be great, because usually when we have a project, it shows what the problems are and what we're trying to achieve, what it looks like. Through the mayor, my questions is, before the the metal fence, how many more feet of, what is it going to be made of, the bottom portion, and how much higher are we going? That's my first question.
Well, let me address something you just said. First of all, I'm not here to get your authorization to complete the project. We've already vetted that. We sent out an RFP. We went through the vetting process, and we have selected a contractor for that. I'm here to talk about the $1.4 million that was previously agreed to so that we can get that. Now, answering your second question about the seawall itself, it's going to be a continuous pour. It's going to go up. It'll be about the same height. We're not looking to change any topography on it, so the heights that we have now are the heights that are going to be, except for on the railing, the cement will come up a little bit more, and then there'll be railing on top of that.
I guess, I was just asking questions through the mayor. Some people, they're taxpayers that are in the town and want to see the ARPA funding used in other ways. We're just asking things like, did they take into consideration the rise of sea rise? So was that concrete slab going up some? Just because we know that we're going to be looking at sea level rise, so accounting for that, is that part of the plan?
That was all taken into account.
So but you said it was staying the same height, is that correct?
It's going to, the wall is going to be a little bit higher.
It will be higher, okay.
That seawall is not there to protect from flooding. That seawall is there to protect the road from falling in. There's a misconception and misinformation that has been solicited on different sources and different channels, and that is that why aren't you addressing the other flooding? We're going to be addressing that later on. The reason this seawall is important is so that the roadway does not fall into the water.
And then the other question I had received through the mayor is, was there a rating done from the state? You know, since it is part of a road structure, what did this score?
I don't know if there was a rating done, but there was an inspection done by DEP, and they agreed with this project.
I guess through the mayor, the question is like, so we have like the we have the bridge to Groton Long Point, and it has a rating, and it has a 1 through, did this get any formal rating? Just curious to where it fell on the thing.
I don't know if that was if a specific rating was conducted or not.
Okay, you know, I think at the time when, I can speak for myself, at the time when the council decided to set aside this money, it was, in my opinion, before we knew, well, I knew where the manager's budget would be or where we were gonna be making cuts or not. I'm in full support and I think it should be fixed. I think this is a large chunk of money, you know, for a seawall without knowing what the rating is. Is this something that, you know, has to be done under this time? Those are just the questions that I've received from constituents. And I'm just doing my due diligence because I'm improving money that they could be using for other expenditures that the town could deem fit. So those are why the questions. And some of them asked, were there any drawing renderings? How high would the wall go? Is it reflecting the sea level rise? Because it would act as a buffer protection. As a person who's grew up here most of my life, my whole life actually, that wall, I've seen the water all the way up to the top, and with it not for that wall, it would flood over even further. So just, you know, curious, because this is, as it was stated, this is from 1900, so we really want to make sure whatever's going there. My last question through the mayor is, how many bids did you have? Was this the lowest bid that you accepted?
We had total, I think, 7 or 8 bids, and this was not the lowest bid. The lowest bidder, we did not accept them.
That's all I have for now. I thank you for presenting this, and if there is a chance we can I'll just go on the city page to get them, but if you could send them, it'd be great to see what the dimensions look like so that we can share them with folks so they understand what the visual is going to look like. I think it is important to see what is there and what's damaged, but it would be nice to see, you know, what the money's going to and what the product's going to look like at the end. And again, you're right, the city's approving this, but we, on this side of the town, are using ARPA dollars that were allocated to the town side, and it would be good to know what that is going towards. So thank you for your time.
Councilor Merritt?
Yes, Madam Mayor, and point of information, I was on the original question when this came up, I believe, 2 years ago, in regards to this portion of the seawall, and the construction of it back then, when it was made, was okay. But now with the change of tides, et cetera, it is not okay. And the point of interest is not the seawall itself, it's the road along it and what is in that road. And if that road collapses and collapses the sewer pipe, somebody's going to get a big bill from the state of Connecticut until that mess is cleaned up. And then you have to address the seawall again. So I think that's where we're standing. We need to get it done.
Thank you. Councilor McBride?
Thank you. Through the mayor, I did have some questions, but I think Mayor Hedrick answered them. And my major overriding question was I wasn't quite understanding why we're calling this a seawall and how it can relate to road construction, because I can't envision a seawall being the same as a road. And my concern was that there's many other seawalls in Groton City as well as Groton Long Point that if we're going to do this one, we're going to be on the hook for other seawall construction. So maybe if we can just get a legal opinion on what Mayor Hedrick had said, and I think Town Manager Burke explained to me earlier that this is really not, we're calling it a seawall, but it sounds to me that this is really a road wall, because it sounds like this is part of the road. It's more road focused than it is seawall. I think that's a point that needs to be made pretty clear, because I don't think we want to go forward with fixing all the seawalls around the area, and it's different than a road. So I just want to clarify if there's anything we can add to the council meeting, if this does get approved, that this is really focused on the road and not a seawall. So, but I think my questions have been answered. I just think that was important matter to make. So I appreciate Mayor Hedrick providing that information. So thank you.
So to the mayor, it is a retaining wall. It is referred to as a seawall, but it is a retaining wall for the road. That's the purpose of this. If you go around other parts of the city of Groton, for example, Eastern Point Beach, you will see seawalls that are there that are holding up the ground and the beach and things like that. I do not intend to talk to the town about funding those kind of things. I will be coming out with an RFP later on, and the city will be taking on those projects for restoration. But this is a retaining wall for the road, which clearly falls under the special act, and that's what brought us here to begin with.
Thank you for that explanation. I think if we can just word it as a seawall, I think it would help everyone understand that it's not a seawall. We're not going to be in the business of building seawalls everywhere. So thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. All right, so looking at the packet, I'd like to clarify that it was originally built in the 1800s. There was it was faced with concrete later in the 1900s. And you're seeing these deep, even from the photos, you can see that they were deep concrete cracking on the face, and the integrity of the original stone wall is unknown. But you can see also that there's washout on the bottom as well. I know we put ARPA funds to this years ago as an earmark, and I think that is, I don't know what that was. Oh. And we earmarked the ARPA funds years ago, and so the remainder of the project, you were having state and, is it federal funding as well coming in for the remaining parts?
No, we received $2.7 million from the state in bonding, and but it's matching funds. So, not matching funds, it is reimbursable funds.
Okay.
So we need some funds, and that's where the 1.4 comes in as well. Because when we first started this, town manager Burt and I talked about it, and he said, can you see if you can find some funds? I said, yes, and we went out, we found some funds. There was still some additional funds that were needed. A long time ago, the engineer said it was going to be about $2.83 million, but there's been some cost escalation due to labor costs and due to material costs, and that was an estimate. We have the actuals now with a 15% contingency because of the type of work that they're doing. And hopefully we will not spend the money, and if we don't need to spend the money, then we won't spend it.
Okay. And I do recall it was 2.8, because we were like, let's earmark half of it now and see if you can get other funds, and if you couldn't, you would come back and we would probably have to, what is going on with these microphones tonight? Something's happening with the microphones. But I think, me personally, that this is, especially with the way our budget's been, that I think if we use the ARPA dollars, it is much better than having to tax our taxpayers and having to collect that through tax generating revenue. So I am happy with it coming from the ARPA fund myself. And I'll give Councilor Bordelon her second chance.
Yeah, through the mayor, when did you identify that this wall, like, how long have you been trying to come up with a plan to fund the seawall? When did you guys start in the city identifying?
It's been several years. It was started probably before I became the mayor, and I've been the mayor for 7 years now. But we had DEP, we had all kinds of hoops that we had to jump through for permits and extension of permits and eelgrass studies and more eelgrass studies and lots of things. So those are things that postponed the ability for us to finally go out. When we finally went out and we did the bids, and we have the bids back, and now we're ready to start. Now we are ready to start construction.
And then some questions that were proposed to me through the mayor was, is it really pertinent that the sewer pipes are gonna stay embedded in the wall when they do the reconstruction. I guess the concern or the question that was proposed to me was, if a pipe was to fail in the wall, the way it is a kind of a tough situation. So will there be some type of setup that would ease that for the future, of repairs and accessibility?
I don't understand your question.
So the sewer pipe runs, we said we got to protect the wall because we're worried about the sewer pipe, is that correct?
The sewer piping runs in the roadway. That is correct.
Okay. But it's not embedded in the wall? So
That is
there-
correct. It
okay.
is not. It is in the roadway.
Okay. All right, so if we had to get to the sewer pipe, you can still get through the road without taking down the?
That is correct.
All right, just want to make sure, because someone was confused by that. And through the mayor, so right now, the city's having to put up money, so it looks like all of the money that we're proposing would be used based on the estimates that you got back from when you went out to bids.
Yes, the $2.7 million plus the $1.4 million plus an additional, what do we have here? $32,136.30 would come out of our, what does my resolution say? Capital non-recurring funds.
Through the mayor to the town manager, what is our road percent obligation? Because if the city's only putting up 32,000, we're putting up 1.4 of ARPA dollars, which are for the taxpayers. Is there any, I know sometimes there's just some, I know with like.
Per the state act, we're required to, for any highway costs, road costs.
At a certain percent or just
No.
blanketed? Okay.
If I may, special act states, the town is responsible for those monies that are necessary and proper for the repairing and making of town roads, of roads that are town roads in the city of Groton. That's what the special act calls for. So technically, the town's responsible for the entire project. Town Manager Burt and I had a conversation several years back, and that's why I went after the funding that we did. So the city has come up with $2.7 million. The fact that with the 10% contingency, that it will put it $32,000 over the 2.7 plus the 1.4, which puts you at 4.1 million. The city is willing to pay for that out of my non-recurring funds instead of going back to the council and going through the process asking for additional funds.
All right, through the mayor, thanks for that clarification. I guess, for me, I will go online, wait and see what the renderings look like. I do think it's important to repair, and I think it is important to do the piping if you're already kind of digging everything up, so it makes sense. I do share the same concern that Councilor McBride shares at the name of it. A lot of people are calling it a seawall. If it's in fact road, I guess through the mayor, should we change that? I mean, so, because a seawall is different than a road. And that's where I think there might be some concerns and misrepresentation in the community, because it seems as if we're funding a seawall.
Well, I believe it's both. I mean, it's a seawall that happens to hold up the road.
That is correct.
Right, so maybe we should, it could be called a
I'm
sea.
not changing the name.
I was still just speaking, you don't have to, I'm just saying it might be nice for the community to just have it say seawall and road, kind of, that, or add some notation in here somewhere.
That's changed and happy to glad. It is, we see what it is, we know what it is, so to try to change the name of it for something else, we know the purpose of this project.
Through the mayor, my hope is that we are increasing, since it's kind of a seawall road, that, with the coastal flooding and things, that it will have runoff. I'm hoping it is going to be not just the railing, but the actual concrete structure is going to be a little bit higher than what it is.
It is going to be higher.
But I don't have those numbers to know, but I look forward to seeing when that is presented. So, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Ross? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, No, I'm sorry, Counselor Rusk, for your first time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Hedrick, for coming tonight. First of all, thank you for getting the $2.7 million. I realize that state funding is still taxpayer dollars, but it's not directly from the community here. It's spread out, so I appreciate that. Just for clarification, the previous counselor mentioned the pipes. So are all of the pipes being replaced? One of the scope of work was remove from an existing 12-inch diameter reinforcement concrete pipe and replacing it, and there's a number of them. So all of the pipes that are in the road are being replaced?
No. Town manager, could you bring up those pictures again? And hopefully, there'll be a picture there that will show what we're replacing. So for clarification, the water pipe, the gravity-fed sewer, and the forced main sewer are in the roadway just like they would be in any other roadway. And they're actually on the other side of the road toward the golf course side. Let me see if we have a picture of a hole.
I haven't seen one.
You have or have not?
Have not.
Okay. Okay. In the seawall itself, there are, this is like waiting for the music to stop. There are a couple places that there are holes that allow for drainage from the golf course and other places. That's the pipe that's going to be replaced in the seawall so that we have that drainage. We're not replacing any utility piping. None of that is being replaced. The only thing we're focusing on is the wall. So you can see, it's called a seawall because it's right there on the sea. It's protecting the water there, but it's also a retaining wall for the roadway. I mean, that's what its primary function is. So did that answer your question?
So that is basically stormwater drainage from
Yes,
the
ma'am.
golf course?
Yes,
Okay. So the road itself is not being torn up, thus the pipes are not being torn up?
That is utility pipes?
Correct.
That is correct. Utility
Okay.
pipes are not, barring complications, but right now, the utility, we do not intend, exactly, we do not intend to disrupt. And one of the things they're doing, they're going to do 3 or 4 test pits to make sure that what they actually find agrees with what the CAD drawings have, because the drawings are old. And we want to make sure that what we have is there, and they are going to put protective measures in so that those concrete pipes are protected during deconstruction and during construction of the new seawall.
Awesome. So I know this has been in the works for a very long time. I'm very excited that this is finally coming to fruition, and I will definitely be supporting this. Thank you.
Counselor Merritt, did you? I thought I had seen your hand earlier. Did you have your hand up?
Just possibly to reiterate what I just said a few moments ago, that the bottom line here is the protection of those utility pipes. And if I'm not mistaken, the new design will be similar to the upper half of Shore Avenue, the slope.
Oh, yeah, the slope will be the same. There's the drainage on the roadway, because there are MS4, stormwater drains along that seawall. That's going to be restored so that all the topography and the drainage is going to be restored to what it was now. What it is.
I think the bottom line is everybody needs to even write it down, the fact that this came about because of the protection of the utilities in the road and the roadway that services the taxpayers, if you want to get to that point. But I incurred this over in I believe it was BB Cove in Noank one year, where the sewer pump itself failed, and they had to put portable pumps in the roadway because the sewerage came up in the manholes and flowed out into the cove. And the state will fine you per day until you get the mess cleaned up to their satisfaction. You have no alternative.
Okay, thank you.
Point of information,
Your question?
I just wanted to clarify, so is it sewage pipes or not sewage pipe, or is it just discharge drain? Because he keeps bringing up the sewage pipes, so I'm confused.
From what I understand, there's sewage pipes under the road, but there is stormwater coming out through the retaining wall.
Right, so that's just, my point of information, so those are just discharge, water that's just kind of passing through, not sewage.
Stormwater drains.
Stormwater
not
drains
sewage.
come through the retaining wall. Yes, the stormwater drains.
But I keep hearing sewage pipes,
Those, I believe, are under the road.
but those are not being done.
No, they're not being done unless something happens, and we don't want to go there.
Just my last thing on that point of information, will these then discharge be updated to the new requirements for stormwater discharge?
Yes.
Which is great, that's great environmental. So.
Okay. Counselor Gieske?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Hendrick, how are you this evening?
Great, thank you.
Good. Through the mayor, thank you for coming and taking time out of your day to explain this. A little confusion I'm having. I appreciate all the work you've done. I just want to do it for my understanding. You said that the current seawall is being raised by roughly 2 feet. Is the road's not being raised with it, right? So if I'm understanding correctly, that the road is, it's kind of going to look like, right now it's level, but since the seawall is going up, the road's going to stay the same. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Correct.
Okay. And then I just want to thank you. I know this predecessors my time on the council. I know how hard you've been working on it. I've been following it in the papers. I appreciate the pictures here. It really does show that, one of the pictures shows that there's like a big rock. It looks like it's maintaining the big piece of concrete. So this is in rough shape. And I thank you for getting the state bonding funding to protect the taxpayers as well. And I will be in support of the motion on the floor. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Before we vote, I just want to say that I thank your council and yourself for doing everything you've done and getting the extra funds from the state of Connecticut. I think our taxpayers appreciate that you went out and did that, because I know the first initial ask was a CIP for the $2.8 million, and I'm so happy that you found the extra funds from the state. And thank your council for taking care of this project. I understand it is under their, from what I'm understanding, it is basically a city. It is our roads, but it is located within the city, so it is under your scope. So you approved the design and the look of it and all of the details. And so you had your whole council reviewing all of those details as well, correct?
Well, we did, but my council is volunteers just like you guys are. So we hired an engineering firm, that's what they do for a living. And the engineering firm helped us look at all the proposals. And we had our staff in Public Works and Highway working on this. And Heidi Camo led the charge on this, and she was tremendous. We also have the engineering firm is going to be overseeing some of the construction as construction manager. So we have professionals on site overseeing the production of this. So it wasn't just a bunch of counselors looking and saying, hey, I think this looks okay. I think this ought to be taller. I think this ought to be a different color. We had true engineers looking at the requirements, working with DEEP and the Army Corps of Engineers and every other agency that was required to ensure that we met all the specifications. And now we're going to have an up-to-date product.
All right, that's great. Great to know. Thank you so much for that explanation. And
I have another point of information.
your question?
Are we using any union workers for this project?
Yes.
Thank you.
And they had to go through the CHRO process just like everybody else, because it's over, and they had to do prevailing wage because it's over $100,000. We met all the requirements we're required to meet.
Thank you. All right, so we will take a vote on 2024-468. Shore Avenue Seawall Reconstruction Project. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that passes 8-0 to 0.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you,
Thank you,
and-
Counselor. Thank you, Town Manager Burke.
Thank you. We have to vote on this one more time at our town council meeting, but I hope your project runs on time and under budget.
Me too.
Good luck. Up next is 2024-323-1, the Groton Heights, request for proposals. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development Services, and with me here tonight,
Paige Bronk, Economic and Community Development.
Oh, my God. I thought I had that dead. I'm so
My
sorry.
goodness.
all right, so the first item we're talking about tonight is the draft RFP in front of you for Groton Heights. We came back before the council early April, got some feedback generally about what the council was looking for in RFPs. The council had held a public hearing on this particular property back in March of 2004. And to also give some kind of broader context, the original RFP for this property was issued back in June of 2018. It was due in August of 2018. The property is about 2 acres in size, and the school closed back in 2007. We've done phase 1 environmentals, we've done appraisals, we've done a lot of background research and due diligence on this. We've been talking about this property for some time, and our next steps after we kind of go through some of the recommended changes to this RFP are sending this RFP draft to both the RTM and the Planning and Zoning Commission for their review and any additional comments from them. It then comes back to the town council for final review so we can release the RFP. And at the time we release the RFP, that's when we'll start getting proposals from developers. And, as we've talked about, we are looking for, to see what the development community offers us. And I think at that time, or sometime around or between then, that's when the council can really decide exactly what it is that you are looking for based upon the proposals that you do get. So happy to get any specific feedback on the draft RFP as it currently stands.
Point of information,
Your question?
before we start, my point of information, is the land also being talked about in this, or we're just talking straight RFP?
So we're still working on the land swap with the Bill Memorial Library. I don't have any new details to offer on that tonight, so we're just talking about the RFP tonight.
Okay, Counselor, did you have anything else to say?
That you do. Thank you.
Okay, we'll open it up. Counselor Rusk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just two questions through you. One, under project initiatives, if you look at page 15, evaluation criteria, benefits to the town.
You're in the new packet that we just received today?
No,
Page
I'm sorry, I'm
15
in
or
the old packet.
Okay.
But it's page 15 of the RFP.
It should be page 15 of the RFP. Yes. Oh, this is so much easier to read, too.
Our apologies about that. We've been having some technical difficulties with the software and getting, it's been finicky with these RFPs. Everything else it's been fine with.
It's okay, I've got an eye appointment at the end of the month. I'm dealing with these readers. So, under benefits to the town, I would like to propose that we add project labor agreement to that. That is part of that benefit to the town. If I can get a consensus from my fellow counselors. And then the only other thing that I know I said this, I don't know that others agreed with this, was under development guidelines, which was just before that. So it is on page 14 of the new one. It says, including housing or in proposal, including housing as or in a proposal is not a requirement, but any proposal that includes housing shall at a minimum include no less than 10% of all units as affordable housing. I had requested 20%. I don't believe that that was the request of the council, but I just want to put that out there again, that my hope is that we could ask for 20%. And again, I will ask for the support of my fellow councilors on that. So the first was the project labor agreement under benefit to town, and then the second was under development guidelines, 20% of all units as affordable housing. And those are my only two concerns. Thank you. And I do ask that you still work with the Bill Memorial Library in trying to do the land swap. I think that that's important.
Yes, no, that is our intent. We've been saying that all along, that's what we plan on doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Bordelon.
Thank you. I can agree with Counselor Rusk. I definitely think affordable housing at a higher scale. I also think there should be wording of mixed income used as well, because that also is affordable housing. So some developers may wish to choose to increase that number, so you can have people at low, medium, and high income, which that helps them regenerate the cost to make it more affordable. So I'd like to see those terms used, because that's really important. I also would like some green initiatives in there. You know, if and when, we don't have to say you have to, but it would make it more desirable if they were going to put in solar or, you know, different things when they decide to restructure the building. Those types of ideas in their master plan are definitely attractable to a community. So I just hope to see a lot of that language in here. Again, it doesn't have to be a have to. It could be a suggestion or something that might set another development apart. I also too agree that I hope that the land swap is arranged at some point, but if it doesn't go through for some reason, I'm hoping it does. But I also think that there should be, when we get to that piece after this, that there should be a first right of refusal if the library was going to sell that portion of land, that the town would have the first chance to buy that land back as a small percent of open space, because it faces a very beautiful view. So if it's not owned by the city library, it would be great to keep it in the town. I just want that in 30, 40 years when we're not doing this, that piece is sold off and someone ends up building there. Let's say they fell in hard times. So also in here, I think that we should be making sure we're looking for developers that are using project labor agreements as well. I know that was somewhat stated there. I think keeping as much as we can of the original historic structure is vital. I know that was in the original one. I'm just restating, so that, you know, the design of that is by a developer that, you know, has many structures and not so many left, so trying to keep it. Workforce readiness housing is another term I'd love to see. With it being so close to EB, and workforce readiness could be the medium or low income folks. It could be not your engineers necessarily, it could be your entry-level folks that are working for EB, but there are a lot of grants out there from what I'm researching called workforce readiness, and that would be a great small condo, one-bedroom kind of structures, which people could like walk down the hill or catch a bus. But those are some of the things that I can think of off the top of my notes now, but definitely affordable, mixed income, workforce readiness, housing models is what the town has been asking for since I've been asking for since I've been on the council. So, thank you, and I'll yield my time.
Town Manager Burt?
Just a note on the original structure, the gym was not original, so I just want to note that. I don't think anyone has a particular interest to keep that. It might not make sense, so I just wanted to point that out. And in terms of, there's quite a bit of things we're starting to list. I don't know if you want to make all of them absolute requirements. I was looking at the mixed income, I was trying to find language. I found an RFP that had additionally the town's prioritizing the following, and it had, for instance, housing inclusive of a wide range of affordable levels or mixed income housing. You know, list out each of the things you'd like to see in there to give a little flexibility to the respondents. So you might want to think, which things are you make adamant, which things are you make preferred.
And also, as we're drafting this, you know, we don't want to confuse people too much or start boxing them in too much. So although, you know, affordable housing gets a wide range of housing types, it also is affordable housing. And I think if we start putting too many tying too many things in or using, I don't want to say, if we get too specific, it might get confusing to people, and they might not know exactly what it is that we're asking for. I would encourage that we stick with, a minimum of X percentage of affordable housing. It doesn't mean that they're only going to do that, and if we want a minimum amount of affordable housing, so for example, if we said, and I know Councilor Rusk had said you'd prefer to see 20, but if we kept the minimum 10 in, as we look at the evaluation criteria, we could put in there something that benefits to the town, higher percentage of affordable housing. So that might be a way of structuring it better, because the thing we have to kind of consider with this is we want the building preserved. We've heard that loud and clear. The building's in really tough shape, and it's going to cost a lot of money to preserve that building. And if we then start requiring high amounts of affordable housing as part of the reuse of the property, it might not be able to pay for the rehabilitation of the building as well. So as we start putting more requirements or things that we'd like to see, all of those come with a cost. So we just want to be cognizant of those costs and, let the development community know, these are our preferences. What can you do? I just caution not putting too many restrictions on things.
May I just do a point of information, please?
Your question?
So I just wanted to clarify, my request were to put it under the benefits to the town as kind of.
PLA?
Yes, PLA.
PLA under the
Yep.
benefits.
Under the benefits of the town, just as a bonus, like if
Correct.
you do this,
Yep.
you're getting bonus.
Yep. No, that I certainly
Just like-
understood.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was talking more with the affordable housing percentage under development guidelines, that portion, that if we start increasing that percentage of affordable or requiring certain lower affordable thresholds, it can make the property, the redevelopment of the property unfeasible, because a couple weeks ago, we had a presentation as part of our community conversations meeting. Dr. Don Poland spoke about housing, and one of the things that he spoke about was when people look at requiring certain levels and very low income levels of affordable housing, they don't see the long-term loss of rental revenue that has to be subsidized for the life of that unit. And it is an unsustainable model, at least in kind of our market. There might be other areas of the country where it can work, but here we have not seen that work without a heavy subsidy that's attached to it on a yearly basis.
Mayor? Just to piggyback on Director Reiner, I think we need to be careful through this process. I'm not sure we're going to have another process where we can still have time to keep the building. So we have to be very, very careful and think this through. I don't think we're getting more shots, because that building is getting very rough.
Councilor Merritt.
I just have one thing to say, and I think it should be included in all sale of property, is the previous buyer backed out after 4 years of holding it off the market. And I would give them 1 year, charge them a percentage of the sale price up front, if they're gonna put their name on it, and when they complete the deal, pay the rest of the money. You could take that percentage that they put up front, you could take it off the sale price. If they walk out within 1 year, then they lose half of that money down. 4 years is a long time to hold a piece of property and then just walk away. I don't agree with that at all.
And that type of item is something that we would work into a purchase and sales agreement. So also when we're thinking about some of the comments or things that we want to see happen, I would just encourage you to keep in mind what goes in an RFP versus what goes in an RFP versus what goes in a purchase and sales agreement. So things like right of first refusal on properties, that's appropriate to go in a purchase and sales agreement. That type of provision that Councilor Merritt brought up, purchase and sales agreement, that we could have kind of that, a non-refundable deposit happening. And we've actually done that with other purchase and sales agreements as well.
Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the mayor, I have several questions on the Section 2 municipal process. It says Groton Heights is a project, is a redevelopment effort and not a real estate transaction. Is it the intent that the building will be sold and Groton will no longer own this building? So,
Correct.
so when it says here, not a real estate transaction, it is a real estate transaction?
Well,
Is it?
a real estate transaction would be, we sell the property and we're not doing what we're doing right now. A real estate transaction, we hire a realtor, we put it on the market, put the for sale sign out in front, and we wouldn't care about the use, reuse of the property. We're saying it's not a simple real estate transaction. This is a redevelopment process. We're very much interested in what happens and, what that end result is.
That phrase is basically kind of a shot across the bow to the development community. Most of the developers that look at the property believe that it's a transaction. They're accustomed to dealing with a real estate transaction, so I'll describe to them during a showing, we want a quality project, we want X, Y, and Z, that's what we're looking for. The next question, they say, yeah, how much do you want for it? I said, it's not a transaction. It's going to be a back and forth. We're asking you to respond to an RFP. That's why we put that language in there. Ultimately, we are selling the property, but we're trying to inform them that there are a number of variables and considerations. It's not a bid. It's bigger than that in trying to find a partner, an investor that will comply or maybe exceed some of our guidelines. That's why we phrase it that way.
Through the mayor, so this piece of, these 2 acres is owned by the town, or is it, it's not owned by the city, it's owned by the town? Is that, we have sort of like a little patch of ground in the city that's owned by the
Correct.
town?
Yes.
And if we did the swap, I'm just going to go to it's just a question I have on the swap. If we did the swap with the Bill Memorial Library and they decided to sell it at some time, it wouldn't go back to the town, it would go to somebody else or do something. Is that right? We don't sort of keep control of any of that once this whole transaction is gone.
Mayor?
I think some of that, if we could work things into the purchase and sales agreement, but, really, we're looking to dispose of this property.
Yeah, but I do agree on the library portion of putting in a reverter clause.
Through the mayor, so it could
To
come
the
back
mayor.
to the town. That's what
Yeah,
you're saying,
for the
right?
library, yeah.
For the library
Yeah,
portion, it could come
not the
back to
development, but yeah,
We have this little piece of property, like
the
having,
part we give, yeah.
like having an embassy.
But again, we want to think about how we structure that, because the developer may come in, buy the property, give a great proposal, meets everything that you're looking for, develops it, does the land swap with the library, they have it all built out, it's all rented, and then they sell the property to another entity. Well, at that point in time, that piece that was transferred, we don't necessarily want it back, it's part of the development. So, again,
We're only talking about the piece we're sending to the library.
yeah, if the library would then do something if they want, gotcha.
Turn around and sell it.
Yeah.
We don't really want it back, but but you're saying we probably
Well,
would.
you may.
We may, yeah. So we have a little embassy in the
Yeah.
city. Through the mayor, we have here the retention of the historic 2-story structure. This is in the development guidelines. So this is what you're talking about. The building is deteriorating. It's an ongoing deterioration in this building, and so we're hoping that we can keep the historic nature of it. But we
Yes.
may not be able to.
Yes.
Is the intent to keep the entire building? In other words, I have seen buildings, I think under federal guidelines, where they just keep 2 walls, they keep 1 wall, just to keep the historic nature of it, but they let some.
I think our intent is to keep the shell of the building. As the town manager mentioned, the interior is in tough condition. There was water pouring into at least the top floor a few years ago. The town was able to repair the roof. There's vandalism. Most of the windows and doors have been impacted. It's an attractive nuisance. the interior of the building is going to require either substantial modification or it's going to be gutted. It's in that level of detail. But I think the shell of the building is what we desire. But the manager also mentioned the gym is basically constructed after the original building. And it is likely that possibly the city might entertain either the removal of the gym or some modification of the gym, not to get too far into their zoning, but they have what's called an institutional adaptive reuse zone. That's for properties like this. Their current zoning would never allow a building like this to be built. They have some zoning that allows some modifications, some flexibility with these older buildings that don't comply with zoning. I think we've heard from the city, they would be open to allowing the gym to be removed since it's more contemporary, but the older school, that's really, I think, the significant portion that needs to be retained.
Through the mayor, going back into the development guidelines, I'm actually in favor of the way it's, just for other counselors, where it currently exists, including housing at the minimum, of the 10%, just recognizing that the building's going to take an awful lot of money to kind of do something with. So I'd like my personal is to have as much flexibility for the developer to not be sort of hamstrung, and they can do what, the best that they can do on affordability, but not to sort of put limits on. That's just my personal view on it.
And one other thing to kind of consider, this is, I know everybody knows this is the Groton Heights RFP that we're dealing with right now, but each one of these RFPs we want to think about as it relates to the particular property we're looking at. There's only going to be so many units on this property. There is going to be an incredibly high cost of the rehab and reuse of this property. Whereas our next property that we get to, if that one was going to be housing, there's a lot more land area. Yes, there's a cost for taking down the existing building, but that's where we're going to get a lot more units and quantity if it's housing. So here, I don't know, maybe we'll get 20 units in total. Is the difference between, 2 units, 3 units of affordable. Here, it's not going to make that much of a difference, whereas at Pleasant Valley, when we're talking potentially 300 units, okay, now we're talking, 10% of that or 15% of that. It adds a lot more total units to that count, so something just to keep in mind.
Through the mayor, I think that's where I'm going, is that it just can't be that many units in this building to sort of segment off a chunk of them this way. So I kind of like where it is at the current moment. So, okay, thank you.
Mr. Burke?
Looking at page 11 where we mentioned the swap, I think we probably need to tweak that a little bit. I know the library has concerns about they don't have really funding for an attorney for the fees and expertise. So, my intent would be it'd be almost a simultaneous transaction between it all. So I think the town has to be, expressly in that. It's not going to be just between the developer and the library. We're going to be involved too.
I think we could change the language there. Potential and transaction is optional, execution dependent upon negotiations between the selected developer, the town, and the library. Thank you.
Councilor Pacino?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Reiner made some clarifications that negated my question. Thank you very much.
Councilor Bordelon?
Thank you. For me, I don't care if it's, through the mayor, I don't care if it's 2 units, if 20% brings that number up in a small building. What I've heard overwhelmingly, there's a lack of housing. So if we're able to house 2 more families than we were yesterday, that's a win. So I just don't want that for me to be the driver because it's a smaller building. What I envision though there is workforce readiness housing, which would still be the affordable. Not everyone at EV makes 6 figures. And that's the people that have reached out to me that are making 50,000 and 40,000. Workforce ready, if they are a family of 3, let's just say, they are meeting that threshold that's hitting the moderate to low income families that are moving into this area because they're not looking for just engineers. I was on the website the other day. There's the lower income thing that support those higher incomes at EB. So this would be great workforce readiness housing, which would fit all the widgets of affordability. So there is a way, and I did do some research, looked around, and said, what is RFPs? If you just Google RFPs with workforce readiness, it's out there. That's what I kind of envision, just the walkable workers for EV. But what I don't want to do, and to me would be kind of a dismiss of what we've been hearing is, okay, now these are this high-end condos, even if it's only 20. We just got, you know, the other building that's going up now that is going to be more the higher end. So if this is, if 4 units come out of this or 5 that are affordable, that's a win. That's 5 more people that we housed that we didn't house yesterday. So that's, I like the workforce readiness wording, but we can cast that net and say, okay, 10, 20%, and workforce readiness consideration because we are a industrial community with EB than the Navy. A lot of the Navy guys that work on there, they're not all officers and stuff. A lot of those guys are making E2, E3, E4, E5 pay, and sometimes they can't get housing when they get here. They are in that workforce readiness category. And starting out, they're only making 40, 45,000. So that's my thing. Also, there's been a huge cry for keeping a small piece of open space like parks. This was a school. We owned it as a town, and it was a park. If they only are able to put a small little jungle gym, making sure it's open to the public. Because it's right there by the library, it's right there by the fort, and you also have the monument there. And if they can't do it there, maybe they're willing to enhance, which I saw in some other RFPs, under the things and benefits to Groton, we can put wording that says we'd like to enhance, you know, the welfare and well-being of another structure that maybe is needing work within a town. That could be a compromise. I know Parks and Recs are trying to get more handicap accessibility. I mean, you can put things in there that if they're willing to support or enhance or restructure and update another park. So workforce readiness, it would be a great middle ground.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that on page 14, under section 11, where it says development guidelines. I believe it's like the 6th bullet point down. It says preservation or creation of some public space and/or recreation on or in close proximity to the property that will be open and accessible to all residents of Groton. And that was what we had done as a council to come up with that type of wording. And I think we were, from my perception, there was a consensus to bring that forward in the RFP process. So I appreciate that it's there. Counselor Gajewski, you were up next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I ask my questions, I do want to, I know that there were some ideas such as, you know, greenness, and I mean that environmentally and in open space. And I just kind of want to read the development, a couple of the development guidelines. It says, on one bullet point, it says use of a sustainable building and site amenities such as previous payment, solar lighting, carbon neutral development practices, and building materials. The mayor mentioned the preservation or creation of some public space and recreation. And housing was another one. And then I believe it was Councilor Merritt had concerns about the 4-year. It also says completion of the project in a timely, planned, and well-executed manner. So most of it is in the development guidelines. The only thing that wasn't previously mentioned that I could not find anywhere in the packet, but I agree with Director Reiner's benefits to the town of a project labor agreement that can go in that section. My quick question regarding when is the last time any town staff was inside the building?
Well, our public works, for instance, the vandalism on the windows and some of it, they've been in there not long ago. I don't know if economic development has, but public works has. They replaced all the broken glass windows with, like, you can't do boarding up in the city, so it was like a plexiglass type of thing put up. But they were in there doing different things.
And the reason I asked that question through the mayor was because Councilor Jones and I, we had, over the winter, we had done a walk of all the properties, and we did see those plexiglass and the building, the inside building, the quality was concerning to me, not knowing of asbestos. The concern, I said, it says retention of the historic two-story structure. What if a developer, the concern I had, I would love to have it be retained, but what if a developer says, there's no way I can retain this? Is that discouraging them from possibly submitting an RFP through the mayor?
So these are development guidelines. We would like all of these things, and you will get a number of different proposals. Some may say we have to knock down the building and we'll rebuild the building to look exactly the way it was, and others will say we can restore it. So and my point before with, we have to be cognizant of all of the requirements we're putting on here. It's not that I don't want more affordable housing. If we have more affordable housing, for example, then that is less money that can be recouped to pay for the restoration of the building. So yes, if we get extra affordable housing units, it's extra affordable housing units, but as a town, we need housing units at all price points, at low income, at mid income, at upper mid, and at high income. We need all types of housing. So if you have a big ask of things you'd like to happen with the property, then you have to be cognizant of also what your requirements are, because if we ask for 50% of the units are affordable, and I'm kind of giving a very high number, then the preservation of the building without a substantial subsidy by the town, and by subsidy, I don't mean just giving the building away for free, but probably money or other guaranteed grants to help restore the building, it's going to be very difficult to get the restoration of the building of what we're looking for. So just trying to think about what it is that you and the community want, and how do we get all of these things to work as part of this. Again, not hamstringing a developer. If we give them general guidelines, we'll see how creative they can get. Then you as a council get to decide upon, from the different RFPs that you do receive, or the different proposals that you receive, I should say, which one best meets all those needs.
Could I add something? Yeah, I'm hopeful of retaining the exterior, partly because this is our only facility that's old enough to be eligible for historic tax credits. So there's some other funding available for this particular project that's not for any of our others.
Just if I could add to that as well, we will, regardless of what we put in the development guidelines, regardless of what's in the RFP, the developer will submit what they want. And I know from past processes, but also showings, when I show the property to prospects and I tell them, we're looking for X, Y, and Z, they'll say, well, I hear you, but I'm looking for Z, or I'm looking for A. They're looking for what they think is going to fit. So there's no guarantee that what we put in the RFP is going to restrict what they submit. What Mr. Reiner has mentioned is that we need to know what it is that we prefer, what we desire, put that in the guidelines, put that in the evaluation criteria, and ultimately it will be the town and the council that makes that decision in the future, but there will be submittals that actually do not comply with what you're seeking, and then there'll be some that comply and others that actually might exceed. So expect you're going to get a full array of proposals. Probably the most important thing is to have consensus among the council in knowing what are you comfortable, what do you want to see, because you're going to see a mixed bag of proposals that come to you. I've been showing the property, I'd say in this last round since the late 2023, and there are a number of developers with various ideas and interests, and they continue to ask, but some seem to have dropped off because they're not sure that the town is ready to move forward, and the ones that are still in the game, they'll call and they'll ask, but I don't know that all of them are still willing to proceed because they feel that maybe we're delaying somewhat.
And then my next question, you kind of led into it, Mr. Bronk. How many proposals did you receive the last time we did an RFP for this property?
That was 2018.
Two, maybe three-ish. I mean, that's memory from 6, 7 years ago. I'm a little rusty.
That's fine.
And it also depends on what you define as a proposal, and I don't mean to be coy. Sometimes the submittals are not adequate. In the past, we've seen a submittal that really doesn't even comply, so I'm not sure that that would count, but probably 2 or 3 that would be legitimate.
I remember at least 2. There could have been more.
Okay, and then through the mayor, my next question is kind of follow up with that, is when you mean submittal that was non-legitimate, was that, I'm just trying to think of an example so I understand it better. Is that somebody saying, I'm willing to buy the property, but I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing? Is that what a submittal would be, in a sense?
No, I'll be honest, about half of the walkthroughs are kind of like that. I understand you're going to go through a process, but how much do you want? That doesn't even count. I'm basically saying after the RFP has been issued and someone actually submits something in writing, it could be a 3-page submittal that contains who they are, what they're willing to pay, and they'll work out the details later. That's not legitimate. I think a legitimate submittal is one that meets at least the minimum qualifications and addresses the requirements that we're stipulating.
Yeah, thank you. And I just kind of wanted to highlight that for the public at home, because that's what I think. I think that, if the town were to sell these properties, they have to go through the RFP process, and they can't just do whatever they want. There are going to be guidelines on pretty much all of the properties. We're going to be doing another one in a couple minutes, but I just wanted to highlight that at home, for those watching at home. And that is it for now. If I have questions that may arise, I may do a second turn. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Merritt?
Yes, through the mayor, I appreciate the concern for the age of the building. However, I've been through this process before with an old building, and the building I'm referring to has been gutted to the point where it's no longer historically significant. In this building here, you're asking somebody to make it safe for a certificate of occupancy for living in. And I'm not sure that holds to holding the same structure that sits there now. If that structure is unsound, then my opinion is to get rid of it.
We have not heard that the structure itself is unsound at this point in time. Is there mold? Are there water damage issues? Is it pretty tough, rough inside? Yes. We have not been told, or we haven't done a full-blown structural analysis on the building. If it sits for another 10 years, at that point, I think I'd start to be worried about it, maybe less, but.
If somebody bought it tomorrow and rehabbed it, so to speak, but still left the outside shell, and that's what we're concerned with, more or less, then 10 years from now, they're going to have to rehab that outside shell.
I think we would look to see what they are proposing to do. They'd be working with our current building, and actually with the city's building official, who used to work in our department, and they would have to meet all current building standards. So if the building has some structural issues, they'd have to address those at the time of the rehab. If the exterior is impacting through water infiltration, I mean, all those things would be addressed during the building permit stage of it. They also, any developer that's worth their salt going through the process is going to do a structural analysis of the property before they run through the heavy-duty design, engineering, and permitting. That's going to be in part of their due diligence.
I'm still of the opinion to more or less if there's a design they can show that fits with the area, so to speak, tear it down and put up the new building.
I just wanted to add, although we've not done a structural analysis, I can say there has been significant interest in this particular property from developers who specialize in rehab work. So although it's not a guarantee, I think some of them have walked through it 2-3 times, and they've spent, especially on a follow-up walkthrough, could be 2 hours, 3 hours, and they bring a crew with them. And there's reason to believe from multiple developers that the structure is definitely salvageable, and they're interested in rehabbing it. So that's not one individual, it's several, so I'm optimistic that it's feasible. I've not heard from any of the showings someone to say, oh no, I can't save this. I haven't heard that yet, but I think we'll find out.
No. I still feel that if the holding to the basic outside shell is more or less standing in the way of development, then, like you said, they're gonna ask you how much do you want? That's the bottom line. I don't care what it is, this is what I'm gonna do with it, how much do you want? We need to move it on. We need to get rid of it, get it back on the grand list.
And at the end of the day, that ultimate decision is made by this group here, once you get all those proposals. And you'll weigh those out, if you get a certain, kind of, as you get to that point, you get a certain number of proposals, there'll be a group that reviews them, narrows it down, you do interviews, and then you pick, that highest and, preferred developer, that's kind of the next stage of the process, but we got to get some proposals in first.
Okay.
Counselor Rusk, did you?
Oh, sure. So my daughter was the last fourth grade class in Groton Heights, my oldest daughter. She is now a fourth grade teacher. That tells you how long this building has been closed. It was a beautiful building, and I am heartbroken that it has been sitting for as long as it has. The community came out and said they wanted a few things. They wanted the building to stay, they wanted the land swap, and they wanted it sold. So ultimately, that is my main goal here, is to save the building, to do the land swap, and to get this building back on the tax roll. If that means my fellow counselors are not comfortable with 20%, I understand that. I would ask for the project labor agreement still, because I don't think that is a sticking point, but I understand your concern with 10 to 20%. I will concede that. That being said, let's get this thing sold, however we can do it. That's it.
Thank you. Being on the council now for almost 7 years, I will say Groton Heights, in the process that we have for these RFPs and trying the empty school properties out there and redeveloped is not an easy process, not by any means. It is much simpler to just put a for sale sign up and sell the property. I think we take the long road because we're trying to give back to our community and make sure we have some kind of development there that would work well for our community. So there are times where I do think maybe we should put the sign up and just for sale, but I do know it'll probably be better for our community in the long run. It does take a lot longer. So one of my first questions would be, what do you think the timeline for this RFP process would be if there are hiccups such as you show it to developers and they're just, because there's a return on investment need here as well. And if it's just the numbers aren't working out the way they need them to work out, could we come back? What is the turnover that if we even have to come back and do a different type of RFP? So I'm just wondering what the timeline is when we will get answers to the RFP process. What do you think this timeline looks like.
So it all depends on, I think, first, how quickly this council moves this to planning and zoning, RTM, and then once you get it back, how quickly you can then turn that around to say, all right, you know, the closer we get to that time period, we've been telling developers for some time, coming soon, coming soon. They're tired of hearing coming soon, and they've stopped, a lot of them have stopped calling because we've been saying coming soon for a while. Once, generally, we put these out on the street probably for about 2 months or so.
Yeah.
Then you get your proposals. Then the time is really balls in your court and how you want a group to, you know, we have guidelines on how you review the RFPs, how quickly you want to go through that process. And it's an intensive, time-consuming process. You know, we're in the process of reviewing RFPs for our plan of conservation and development. Pretty straightforward. It's taking time just to get through the proposals we received, and it's not as intricate as something like this. I mean, time frame. If you needed to turn it back around and turn it over, I think it's up to you on, do you feel that if you don't get the proposals you're looking for, and then you want to make edits to it, do you then need to send it to the RTM, to the Planning and Zoning Commission again? Then do you need to have more public hearings, or have you had enough public hearings? So I think some of that, I hate to say I have to put back on the council of what processes, if you wanted to redo it, that you would want to utilize, or is it, we've already done all of those, we need to refine it because we didn't get what we're looking for. The other thing, and I keep trying to say this in a few different ways just so that it comes through clearly, I think there's a sense of many people that, developers have endless deep pockets, they're just here to make money and do something and, you know, make as much as they can and leave. They are the ones that are implementing our plans, utilizing our zoning, and building our community for us. And there has to be a return on that investment. So whoever it is, we just have to make sure that it's a practical return on investment.
I'll be direct. I think it can move along as expeditiously as the town desires. It will not really be the developer or the investor. It's the process that the town allows to proceed. So the more steps, the more boards, commissions, review, that will lengthen the process. Typically, a developer will want to know, how quickly can we close? That's usually, so it won't be usually the private sector. There are, of course, exceptions to that, and that was referenced earlier with a past partner we had, but generally, it's the municipal side that causes the delay. So if we can work through a process that we're comfortable and streamline it, it can move as quickly as you would like.
Okay. So you really didn't tell me a timeline.
There's on-
You didn't
on
give me a
page-
date. You're
on
not
page
like
17.
6 months.
Oh.
6 months. Are we looking at like 6 months if we could get through like at least where we're sending out the RFP and maybe starting to get, receipt of RFPs?
If at the council meeting, if tonight the council says, yes, we vote to send this to planning and zoning and RTM, and then that's authorized at the, I can't believe it's already going to be June, council meeting, we then get it to the Planning and Zoning Commission and RTM. Theoretically, they review it in June, possibly their July meetings. We would have it back to the council at the second meeting in July. If you're good with it, we then move forward to the next step. I think we have to have one more public hearing on this. Is that correct?
There's a public hearing once you start getting the bids in and you present something. We've had the initial public hearing, the others a little bit later.
So then, if this came back from the Planning and Zoning Commission, RTM, sometime July, second cow in July, if at that meeting the council said, yes, we want to move it forward, it's voted on at the August meeting. If there aren't substantial changes in the document, we could have it out sometime in August. It's out on the street for August till September, till mid-October. We get bids sometime, middle to end of October. You then start reviewing them there's other things we can be doing during this time as well, forming your committee, getting all of those ducks in a row of exactly who's going to review, who's going to be the group that does the initial kind of cut through from the different bodies that are prescribed in the process, so that once we have those proposals, we can get them going, start setting up, meetings ahead of time, knowing, all right, if RFPs or if all the proposals are due October 20th, well then, we distribute all the RFPs, and the first meeting of that group is November 1st. And then, and you have a number of meetings set up so they can discuss it, and then, maybe in December, you're starting to set up interviews. That might take a month or more. Then from there, there's a recommendation to the council. We're probably into January. I mean,
All right.
and that's aggressive,
Okay.
meaning, we just have to stay on top of it. Because as soon as, we don't get to it, 2 months goes by, and that's 2 more months that building deteriorated.
Right, and I think I've been doing this long enough to know that nothing in government goes very quickly.
Yeah.
So it has been closed for 17 years, which I think is a long time, and we have heard people that have asked repeatedly for it to, for us to sell this and get this back on the tax rolls. So I am committed to us trying to get this going as quickly as we possibly can, not rushing the process, but at least getting things moving. I also want to ask on here, what is the difference between, where are you basically saying, here are the requirements that we as a town are looking for? And what are the parts that you're saying, all right, and if you do these things, these are the bonus points that will probably give you like a step up? Can you explain that in this? Because I'm seeing some things in where they are, but I'm not exactly sure how this would read to a developer and how they would know such a thing.
So really, the development guidelines on page 11 set this is what we're looking for. The project incentives, just to be clear, that's if developers are looking for incentives from us. That's not incentives necessarily to them of, oh, if you do this, you get more points. Number 13, the evaluation criteria, that is where a lot of those pieces fall in, compliance with the submissions, team qualifications and experience, viability, and then that last one, benefit to the town, financial offering and benefit to the town, taxes to the town, quantitative and qualitative benefits. That gets into those development guidelines, building design and efficient use of property, other community benefits, public use, amenities, others, and also under that project labor agreement. Having had written a number of RFPs for, working on properties like this as well as other things, we don't want to box it in so much. I think this is pretty clear, and I think this would be clear to the development community. I don't know if there's, could we add something else in the benefit to the town? Maybe I think we could put a bullet in there about affordable housing, over 10% or something along those lines to make that clear.
I was also going to mention, so there are possible points. So in terms of incentives, in trying to lead a developer to do the best project possible, a developer would go down this list and really use this as an itemized list and try to make their project the best possible. If they're not adhering to these 4 categories well, project approach, team qualifications and experience, project viability, ability to execute in a timely manner, or benefit to the town, they're not going to score well. And there will be a competing project that is in some ways given an incentive, a higher scoring, that, number one, they'll receive an opportunity to interview, possibly they make a short list. If they don't score well, they may not make the list for the interview, so that is the incentive.
Okay.
So we have to put what we desire in the RFP so that they can attain the scoring to get them to that interview process.
Okay, and then what incentives are given to developers to build affordable housing? Like, does the state have incentives for developers?
There are some, but they are highly competitive. And getting new permanent subsidies on properties for very, very low income, I don't want to say are impossible, but they're next to impossible. Again, tonight we spoke about the CDBG grant. That is a competitive grant program. There are other state grants that are out there that the clock is ticking on. There's only so many rounds of them, and all of those come with a lot of strings associated with them in not only to the developers, but also us from, managing those types of things. The amount of time that Paige and our new economic development specialist, Corinne, have been working on that community challenge grant, it's an exponential amount of time, an immense amount of time.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we as the council should do sort of a, where do we stand on these things? There's like one item that I thought, it's under development guidelines, and it's the green initiatives. I thought that was going to be more of a, you fall higher in your bonus points or whatever, our grading system. I didn't know we were going to make that as like more of a criteria of what we are requiring. Because if it's saying in here like solar lighting, pervious pavement, carbon neutral development, I think those are things that, in my personal opinion, would be more of a benefit, like evaluation criteria that would rank higher. But I didn't think it was going to become a requirement, like as if we put it in the development guidelines.
Point of information?
And your question?
I might be wrong, my question, I thought originally when we went as a council to be more resilient, that was something that I remember from many years ago that we were gonna like automatically put in as an ask if we could, because that was something that we were moving the town in the direction of. So if we're gonna build new structures, we should start to be implementing those now to be more carbon neutral. That's just what I have in my notes.
No, I agree with you, but this is not we're not building them, it's a developer building them, and these are things that we can say, you will grade higher if you do these things, but it's not a requirement, because it was even discussed at, I believe, at our meeting, if my memory serves correct, it shouldn't be a requirement, it should be one of those, you will grade higher on our scoring sheet.
I mean, I guess maybe I perhaps remember it a little bit differently. It was one of the things where if you're building, like if I was to build, my house is from '89, didn't have all those things. If I was building my house new now, it's a no-brainer that I would want those things in there. So yes, we don't own the land. We own the land. We have a chance to set the trajectory of the output of what it could be producing. So, but I'm open.
I agree.
But thank you for clarifying it.
I agree, but I also think some of these cost a lot more, and that I think developers, especially right now with everything being so expensive, might be an issue. So that's why I'm saying it might be, Mr. Reiner?
So actually what I was thinking, so along those lines, if we're not sure, I was trying to give some examples of things that could be allowed, and maybe what we do is just at the end of that statement, neutral development practices and building materials where feasible. And maybe that it's in the development guidelines and it's what we desire for the property. And then it gives them the flexibility to kind of work within all of those. If you want us to also put something similar in that kind of community benefit section, we certainly could. So then it puts a little bit in both spots.
Point of information?
Your question?
There was a reading that I had found, and I have in my notes, is one RFP said, they stated, could we use something that just says we're looking to move it in a more carbon neutral fashion? Not those words, but you just say that and that's implied that, oh, they want green energy, it could be just that carbon, it's a goal, like we have that thing that we said we're doing, and just by putting that we're looking, and then whatever they come forward with, we will have a chance to review.
Right,
Carbon neutral incentives, I guess, possible.
Yeah. Just me personally, I don't want to make it a requirement that you have to do these things, because I think that might change the scope of how people come in and what their, especially return on investment and other things that are going on. So let's go through some of these things. So I took some notes, and so we also have it.
Madam Mayor,
Counselor Askey?
I have another round of questioning that I.
Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Counselor
I just
Gieske, I'm
wanted,
sorry.
yep. Yep. Thank you. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. Town Manager Burt, you had mentioned earlier about, since this is a historic building, that tax credits were available. Is that anywhere in the RFP process through the mayor?
Well, I don't like to guarantee anything. That should be up to the developer. There are developers that work with those, and there are ones that don't. And like, for instance, the developer's done a lot of the things in New London, does only buildings that use it that are, around the stage. So it's not something, though, I'd want to put out there.
Okay.
And those are not town tax credits.
Yes.
Correct.
Those are state or federal tax credits.
But I guess what I was trying to get at, like, is it possible to put something in that says you may be eligible, like, just kind of advertise it just in case?
Those who work with them know.
Okay.
They're pretty onerous. I think those who do it, and those who don't. I don't think it's much of a crossover.
Okay. And then through the mayor, my next question is, who determines if the structure is not sound currently? Is that the state or the town?
Groton Heights
Yeah.
school property, you want to know
Yeah.
if it's,
Yeah.
what would,
Because I know.
may I ask why you would think the state would have something to do with it?
You know what, now that you mention it, I don't know why the state would have something to do.
No, I was just curious if you
Yeah.
had an idea of.
No,
what-
I
okay,
just like, is
where
that
you were coming
current, like,
from.
because it's public, I guess it's because it's public building, and technically, it's still a public building because it's owned by the public. And that's why I was wondering, who determines, because I know we haven't done it, but like, what would be the process to do it, if we would do it, not saying we should.
Do what?
Like, determine if the building structurally, has it been like reviewed as structurally sound?
Well, I'm not sure I'd want to take the cost out. I think that's part of their due process.
Okay, okay, all right. And then, is there anything preventing from adding another building to the property / subdividing the property after the sale is complete? Is there any, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if they're only gonna rehab the building, but they're paying for the land, and they're not gonna do anything with the land, but they want to subdivide the land, in the final, I may be getting way too in the nitty-gritty here, but is there something that we could have a right of first refusal to purchase that land back?
I think those would all be things that we would work into a purchase and sales agreement, but again, what is the goal? I think it's hard to define what we might want without knowing what the final plan is going to be.
Okay.
So I think once we have a preferred developer, the council approves their concept plan, which then would go to the City Planning and Zoning Commission, get approval, come back to you if there are any deviations from that. Somewhere, maybe when they have that concept plan and you're negotiating a purchase and sales agreement, if there's a big piece that, we're just going to leave that and we don't know what we want to do with it, all right, then there could be something else there. Or, they want to build another building on it, who knows?
Okay, and then my last question is, in regards to a doomsday scenario where we don't get a proposal that meets the requirements, do we save or like keep record of the people that say how much you want, just in case the council comes back to that route, in case we wanted to do that, or would that be a completely separate process where we just put the for sale sign up?
I think that really goes to what you want to do.
Okay.
Everyone that walks through the building, he's got their names, so we keep track of generally who, who's visiting the property, who's showing interest. We keep, we try to keep in touch with people as much as we can.
Okay.
Some may still have interest, some may not have interest, but if the council said, this didn't work, we just want to put a for sale sign out in front, then we could do that. We could, I think it would go pretty quick that way. But
Okay.
Even if the first RFP, we want this to work right this time. And that's why, if, I don't mean to be insensitive to what your needs or requirements are. We just want to make sure that there's a market reality to it and that we know what your preferences are, and you can rate the proposals based on your preferences that are generally in here. But if we leave it, some general guidance in here of what we're looking for without getting things too strict, You'll see what the proposals are, and I think you'll have some good options to choose from.
No, and that's kind of what I was getting at, because I do have that, I understand where when you've been, during the back and forth, I have concern that, it may be too restrictive, it may not be restrictive enough. I mean, are we doing everything we want here? And I just want to make sure, because, I wasn't even in elementary school yet when the building closed. So that really shows you how long it has been vacant. So that is why I'm kind of like pushing. I don't want to be too restrictive that we don't get anything, but also, hey, doing right by the public in a sense. So that's it for me. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Just a quick question. How, when a developer puts in an RFP, typically, how much does it usually, they have invested in the RFP? Like, how much money have they invested to just submit an RFP?
Funny, that was something I've wanted to address, and we keep going, and that could be anywhere from $10,000 to substantially more. It's a lot of time knowing what, engineers, site surveyors, landscapers, attorneys, like the professionals that they bring to the table to put something like this together. I mean, they could be 20, 30, plus $50,000 into it, depending on the level of their proposal. That 3-page proposal that Paige was talking about, where, hey, here's who I am, I'll give you X amount of dollars, and I'm thinking of doing this, though that doesn't cost $10,000 to put together, so I don't know.
I was just going to say, sometimes a developer will go all out. They'll actually pay for a full set of plans. When I say plans, I mean floor plans, detailed, because they want to prove how committed they are to fulfilling a project. So they really go out on a limb. Others play it safer, and they'll go with the minimum requirements and kind of figure it out as they go forward. But even as written, I think it's going to be a sizable investment from any developer to convince the town that they're submitting something that is worthy of consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Point of information?
I do have some concerns because it is such a small property. The building is just can only fit so much inside that building. And the return on investment and the things that goes through my head, and I do hear concerns, and especially the amount of remediation and the gutting of the building and having to rebuild it, and especially right now with the cost of everything so high for building, and that's, we see things nationwide where there's not a lot of building going on because they cost a lot right now. So I too I'm trying to be very careful on what kind of things we put in here, and that's even why when you say some of the criteria in the development guidelines, and that's basically saying these are almost requirements or what we're looking for, I worry about some of those, and that if some of them should go into more of the evaluation criteria where we say you rank higher because you did these things, or you're putting these into your plan. So, yeah, okay. Counselor Bordelon, your question?
I guess for me, my question, it's hard for me to decide, like, I know what I want in here based on what I've heard from the community, but my question, we haven't set up the process on how we're gonna vet it. As you said, you've been up here 7 years, I've been up here almost 5, and on the RTM for several years, and before it was a couple counselors that reviewed the RFPs that went out for the other bids, and then it came back and the council only reviewed the one preferred. We didn't get to see the other ones, we only had the one that was preferred. So, my question, if I'm on that board and 3 others are on that board, we all have different views, it's not gonna be the view of the council, so it's hard for me because maybe what I want to put in here now is gonna be different because it depends on who's sitting. Are we gonna only send one forward to the council? I mean, those are the questions that I kinda need to know by deciding what we're gonna put in here too. That's just a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I think should go in here, how many people are gonna be?
Well, I think the
That's
review,
tough.
I believe the review committee is 2 counselors. there are legal issues, I believe, that come with this, that there's potential for
Open meetings.
open bids, and until there's one selected, you can't open it up to everybody, and there's confidentiality things, and then, I don't know. So do you want to speak on any of that?
I think right now, the way the review process reads in the guidelines is it 2 council members, 2 RTM members, might be a member from EDC, and I can't
Town
remember
staff.
if there was.
Relevant town staff.
And relevant town staff, yeah.
Right.
And that is, some of these things, again, because of confidentiality of bids, we can talk to the council as an entirety in executive session through negotiations and say, okay, we received X amount of bids. We can give you an overview of these types of bids. And, the council can give some consensus to the 2 council members that are serving on that group through, if we started and said, hey, just to give you an overview of what we're dealing with, here's what we have. There's a review committee that's going to dive into the weeds on these, but generally, here's what we have. I mean, it's your process, so you can kind of dictate how you want to inform those 2 council members or let them know your preferences, depending on who's on that committee. And then if you say, well, we want to interview 3, or that's the magic number, we want to interview 4, is that, who is that done by? And again, that review process is spelled out in policy right now. So that is there. The other thing is, as we start moving ahead with the RFP process, while it's in the hands of planning and zoning, RTM, if there's more things that we need to discuss, we can, if there are questions or things that you're thinking about as part of that process or things that are important, we can be debating those, or the council can, while the other wheels of this process are turning.
Right. And we don't want to put out an RFP, and then after it's already out to developers, we shouldn't change that. That's something you just should not change at all. So I understand the seriousness of trying to make sure this is correct before we push this out. Councilor Borderline?
Yeah, I think before we had 3 on our committee, but I looked at other town structures, and they are informing their council all the way through in executive session, which is, attorney privilege, and you can go in executive session. So the 2 come back and they would say, hey, we got this one, this one, and this one, or 3 or 4, but their council was involved every step of the way. My concern is if we leave it to 2 people, the reason there's community outpush and roar is when you only have 2 people that are representing the whole council, it's already too late when you only come with the 3 of the 7 that you interviewed, and we have no idea. It's so hard to select because I'm selecting something I can't see. So that's my concern. So how do we involve the council, which you can do, because I did reach out to other towns, and they do involve their whole council. So I'm just confused, like how other towns are doing it.
Right.
They're not just doing
So,
2 counselors.
I get what you're saying.
I'm just concerned.
But that is like sort of the process that has been agreed upon. But what we're dealing with right now is the RFP itself. I think we should try and come up with a wording in the RFP that we find is appropriate to put out to developers. And I think that's,
And then if we're gonna do that, to the mayor, then it seems as if we should put all the counselors' views in there to the most part, because if only 2 are going.
it's not about just putting it, I'm just going to speak for myself and how I see this. It's not just about putting in everybody's ideas, because it's going to a developer, and the developer is going to be like, look at all the stuff they want from me. I'm not doing any of this. Goodbye. I mean, it's not one of those ones where I personally don't think you just throw in everything and see what sticks. It's one of those, here are some guidelines that we are looking for, and that's why I'm saying I'm going to ask the counselors for their consensus on some of these items, on where they want, if they want them in here, and if they want to put them in as more of a requirement or more of a bonus evaluation criteria item. So I think we'll move on now, and I think we'll take care of these, because it's 10 o'clock, and we're going to take part of this, and then we'll vote on whether we want to continue the meeting with Pleasant Valley, or if we're going to come back with that one. All right, so I wrote down some notes. We'll start as the first one that came out. This one would be on page, I believe, 15, under section 13, evaluation of criteria. It was requested to be put into benefits to town, and you basically get extra points if you, I don't know how the terminology would be, but you institute project labor agreement in your building processes, correct? So we will, we will try and take a consensus to see if counselors are in favor of that. Maybe we should do it by roll call so I can sort of feel like where everybody stands. So you can say yes or no. Counselor Merritt, would you like to put in project labor agreement into the benefit section of the evaluation criteria?
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. Counselor Bordelon?
Mayor, through you, it would go faster if we could maybe just ask, does anyone have any objection first? And if there is, then we do roll, but if there's not, we can just push it through faster, just a thought.
Well, I just sort of want to make sure I hear everybody, because there's been issues before, and if somebody says they want to have a roll call, we're just going to do a roll, like, when somebody asks for a roll call, we do one, so.
Someone asked for a roll call?
I did.
Oh, all right. I'm for PLA. I just thought this will take a long time.
Okay,
so.
Counselor Pacino?
Aye.
Counselor Rusk? Counselor Jones?
Yep.
Counselor McBride?
Yes, in the benefit area, thank you.
Counselor Guyce?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. So we would like to put that in as an evaluation criteria,
Got
bonus
it.
points.
Yep.
All right, so the next one we have is workforce readiness housing. I'm going to take these all together. There's affordable housing being requested for 20%, mixed income housing, as in terminology.
Excuse me, Mayor, could I speak to that for a second?
Sure.
Because I understand what Councilor Bordelon is asking, but each of those are different ways of talking about very similar things, and I don't want to create confusion. Affordable housing, everybody understands what affordable housing is. Mixed income or mixed income affordable, well, that's another way of saying affordable, but it's not necessarily guaranteeing deed-restricted affordable units. And if we're talking about work-ready or workforce housing, work-ready and workforce housing are nicer ways of saying affordable housing without saying affordable housing. And so it's different uses of very similar terminology in our space that like those are the terms we heard, because for a long time, well, affordable housing, there was a lot of public pushback to. So let's talk about workforce housing, because, you know, it's code for affordable housing. So I don't want to send mixed messages. If you asked staff what would be the clearest thing to the development community that would get the intent of what you're looking for, we're looking for a percentage of affordable housing, and if we're having some affordable, we will then have some market rate, which will then have a mix of income types. That's in the development guideline section. If in the scoring criteria, if you said higher points for a mix of affordable housing price points, if that was the intent, that's how I would, as a professional writing about affordable housing stuff for 20-plus years, that's how I would recommend we break those two things up.
All right, say one more time the part that I should be questioning.
So leaving the section in the development guidelines as, include no less than 10% of all units is affordable housing. But then in the benefit to the town, there's kind of two things I had in there. One is affordable housing over 10% if there's housing as part of the proposal, or some wording like that. And affordable housing, again, if housing, in parentheses, affordable housing at different affordable housing price points.
And that's the second section?
Within the benefits to the town.
So affordable housing over 10% if housing. And then the second part was, say it one more time, I'm so sorry.
And I might tweak the wording a little bit as we, write this, but if housing, affordable housing at different price points, at different affordable housing,
So you're saying you're going to have two different lines in there or just one?
2 different lines. Because I think they are both getting to the point, again, not trying to put words in Council Bordelon's mouth, but I think that's what she was trying to get at, of having a mix of affordable housing incomes, as well as having mixed income housing throughout the development. And some councils are talking about, possibly incentivizing more than 10% affordable. So putting that in there is something that could be a benefit to the town.
So the evaluation criteria, you're saying have 2 different lines or bullet points that say affordable housing over 10% if housing, and then if housing, affordable at different price points.
Yes.
I think they could probably go in one bullet point, but, and/or. Okay,
Point of information.
your question?
So what I have here in my notes, and it says RFP and defining project requirements. It says start by clearly outlining the requirements for your affordable housing project. Include the number or percent of location of amenities, income eligibility criteria, specific design and structure guidelines. If using mixed model or workforce readiness, you can, there's a lot. So I've been reading a bunch of different RFPs, looking at ways it was written.
And what document are you using?
Just searching, if you search affordable housing criteria, I'm on a template right now and looking to see what towns use. I guess if we don't decide it today, can you bring us back some models maybe? That's my question, is like this round robin of, let's try to tweak it this way. It really might be more beneficial once we figure out what we want, if we could get emailed some of that language or examples of how it's implemented so we can see it. We don't get enough time to talk and, so I don't know, I'm seeing it written a bunch of different ways, and that's why I'm speaking like that, so.
All right.
And this is the language that is generally used in Connecticut, New England areas. So if we're trying to give clarity to the development community, if we talk about affordable housing and we talk about various price points within the affordable housing threshold, that's going to be clear of what people are looking for. I know what you mean by workforce housing, work development housing, work-ready housing. I think developers are going to be scratching their head at it. So depending on where those, that's my recommendation.
Thank you. So the question now is, would you like to leave in where the requirement on section 11, which is basically our requirements, stating that you want to have 10% as affordable housing, and then insert into evaluation criteria in section 13, where you would get bonus points, basically, in your review, if you inserted, if housing, it was affordable housing, or affordable housing at different price points. So we can go down the line and let me know what your selection is. So, Counselor Merritt, what would you like? Would you like those? Do you agree with those criterias? Your microphone?
I'll go along with it at this time. I'm not totally knowledgeable of all of this process, but whatever moves this along.
All right.
I mean, we've been discussing this for quite some time, and it's a piece of property. It's
Yeah.
time to get it done.
Thank you. Mr. Bordelon?
I'm just going to stick what I said. What I'd like to see is something, the way I saw it stated, is they have option of doing mixed income, which is multiple levels, which is below the poverty, and middle and upper. Workforce readiness, is a different criteria. There is grants and stuff out there for workforce readiness for people that are trying to get employment, like at EB, which I'm reading here. I don't think 10%, I'd like 20%. So that's what I would like to state. So I think when you put it all in there and you define it like that, it leaves multiple options on the table. Because there's different grants and funding out there at different levels.
So are you saying, no, you don't want what was just suggested to us by the town staff?
I want to see 20, I thought you said 10%, is that what you said?
Well, we were going to leave 10%
Yeah, I want 20%.
in the requirement,
I'd like 20%.
and then over in the criteria, over 10% would give you higher ratings, and so would different price points.
Yeah, I think with the cry from affordable, I think
So-
a minimum of 20% is what I'm looking for,
Okay,
based on the community outcry.
thank you. I put you down
Thank
at,
you.
all right, thank you. Counselor Pacino?
Yes.
Counselor Rusk?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor McBride?
Yes.
Counselor Gieske?
Yes.
I am also a yes. All righty, so you have those. All right, so that's all set. And then we're moving on to the section of retention of a historic two-story structure. And bringing up if there's the possibility of it not being salvageable or saving the historic building due to structural issues. I would like to potentially just request, where it says retention of the historic two-story structure, would it be appropriate to maybe put in there if feasible, if they find structural issues?
Can I ask where you are?
I am on section 11 on third bullet point from the bottom.
Thank you.
Do you say that's not, is it appropriate?
We could put that in there. I worry that if we put it in there, it almost gives people an out. And says, oh, well, I'm just going to say it's structurally unsound. I mean, I've seen people
Right,
do that
understood.
before, when it could be saved.
Just saying.
I'm just going to speak from the heart. I think if we're dealing with someone who's going to do that, maybe, and we find others who say that it's able to be saved, it kind of makes our decision a little bit easier.
So put the if feasible in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we'll know if people are, yeah, okay.
I'm just curious because I don't want to put out an RFP and then honestly come to find out there are
Yeah.
legit structural issues. And then the whole thing's got to go around the whole 6-month cycle and then come back to us and we have to go out for another RFP because it isn't salvageable. That's my only concern.
Yeah.
I do want to,
Yeah, no,
want to salvage it.
I think
Don't
it
get me
actually,
wrong.
the more I'm thinking about it, I think it does make sense to put in there if feasible, because then it gives the council the ability to say, well, because the last thing we want to do is have one person say, I can save it, and everybody else says, I'm sorry, it can't. And then lo and behold, they get in there and do a structural analysis and say, oh, actually, we can't save it, but thanks for picking us as the preferred developer. So we don't want that to happen. So I think the if feasible is the way to go.
Right. Okay. So, Counselor Merritt, are you in favor of putting if feasible in the section of retention of historic two-story structure if feasible?
I'm speaking from myself, I'm not really in line with that, but I'll go along with it because I think the community is going to want it, the community around it, and there could be a problem objecting to that.
Well, what I said was if it is structurally unsound.
Oh, then it goes.
That's what I'm trying
To get a CO, you got to get rid of it.
So the question is, let me just say it.
Oh,
Retention of historic two-story structure if feasible, meaning if it is
Correct,
structurally
correct, yes.
sound. That's what I'm trying to say there.
yeah.
Okay, thank
So
you. All
that'll save the developer money too.
right, Counselor Bordelon.
I'm not sure how to, I'm unclear on the question.
What is going on?
If you don't move it, it won't make that noise.
Who are you talking to?
Counselor
Oh, Mara?
Merritt.
But if you lay it towards you, then it'll pick up on the noises.
Retention of historic two-story structure, if feasible.
I'm a little confused by that. Is it if feasible financially? If feasible, they want to do it? If feasible is kind of open-ended, are we going to require a report? We have to define our feasibility is my only concern. So I kind of want to go back to what,
If it's structurally sound is the intent.
but if we're not doing the test, whose test are we using?
Well, they just explained it to you. If 5 people come in and say it's not structurally sound, and one guy's like, yeah, I can do it, I can save the building, odds are it's probably not structurally sound. If you have that many developers coming in who are highly trained, and, because with the money they're gonna invest in this building, they're gonna know what's going on there. I mean, I get what you're saying, that there may be some that say it's not structurally sound, just try and get something different in, but I think you're going to get a feel for this, and they're probably going to show you and discuss with you, and then there's much more information that happens that we're just, as counselors, not aware of, and you're going to know more than us.
And once the RFP hits the street, or we tell people, hey, it's coming in a month, we're going to be releasing in a month, there's going to be a lot of showings. With those showings, developers, again, are going to be going through there with their professionals, with their structural people. They'll be doing analyses, and they want to know if that building can stay or it needs to come down as part of the proposal. And the people that are doing that are the type of people that stamp plans with a professional license, and so we will get copies of reports if they're part of RFPs, as part of proposals, not at the RFP, of the proposal itself. Or if they get to the short list, they'll say, hey, if you select me, I want to do more due diligence. And then if they say, oh, it can't come down, or that will flow through the process.
I just want to reiterate, a municipality could say, this is a hard and fast rule, and that's still no guarantee that a developer is going to come forward and propose something that contradicts it. So I think this is quite reasonable in demonstrating what our intent is, but giving some flexibility. But at the end of the day, there'll be a mixed bag of submittals, and it will be incumbent upon the reviewers, the town, to basically say this is either in line with what we desire or it's not. You hold the cards.
Right.
All right, so I'm in full support of retaining the two-story structure minus the gym, but I do not like the extra if feasible, because I think that leaves it way too open in my opinion, so.
Thank you. Counselor Pacino?
Yes.
Counselor Rusk?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor McBride?
Yes.
Counselor Gieske?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. All right, direction on that one. All right, so then it is on section 11. It's the second to the bottom bullet point on section 11. Use of sustainable building and site amenities such as pervious pavement, solar lighting, carbon neutral development practice, and building materials. That section, I personally would ask that we change that over to section 13 and goes under benefit of town. Or somewhere in this, I don't know what would be the best place. Because that's one of those where even Councilor Bordelon came up with some terminology that I also am in favor of. It's however you want to state it. I am good with that going into that section, but I don't want it to be, because section 11 is more of a requirement you have, like, this is what we want you to do, period. I would rather have it moved. So. Counselor Merritt, are you?
Where would you move it to?
I'm going to put it, I would put it in section 13, where people would evaluate it, and they would get bonus points if they made it sustainable buildings and site amenities that were sustainable and things like that.
Mix it with their design.
Yeah, I would put it in the section here that's not, because section 11 is an actual requirement and section 13 is more of you will grade higher. All right. Counselor Bordelon?
I'm just a little unclear. I thought that 11 was a general requirement, not a requirement. I'm just, if they could just clarify.
We had gone over that earlier, and section 11 are the guidelines that we are saying this is what we want from you. Section 13 is if you do these things, you will grade higher in our application process. Are you in favor of moving that section to section 11? I mean, from 11 to 13?
I guess I'm confused if we say in that section that we're looking for carbon neutral if feasible, but then giving it an option in the other area for extra points, couldn't you still do that?
We could. So my ask is to move this section from 11 to 13. Are you in favor of that, or?
I'm in favor of it as if feasible in the main section, because it tells us that we have a resolution to be carbon neutral. And then we could say, here's where you get extra points in the other area.
But you're saying it's required, but then you'll get extra points if you do it. That sort of is a contradiction.
You can put in there if feasible.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Counselor Pacino?
Yes.
Counselor Rusk?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor McBride?
Yes.
Counselor Gieske?
No.
I am also a yes. So you have direction on that as well. I believe that is all the items that anybody has brought up. The other things are in here that people seem to be in favor of, from what I've heard from conversations. So if you will, let me just ask, this will be redone, and then it will be, would you send it back out to us for a review? And then we will have a final okay before it goes to the RTM, is that correct?
We certainly could. I do think these are all pretty minor changes. I think we got consensus. I mean, if the council wanted to move this tonight, you'd then look at it at the council meeting on June 4th or so, but it's really your
So we would
preference.
have the full wording by our next town council to be able to review ahead of time, is that what you're saying? That you can do the minor changes and then?
Yeah.
Let me just,
Or we can put it on the next agenda, of the cow. I think at the time we have, we're going to spend a lot of time that night on Pleasant Valley, hopefully.
all right, let me just check with the council. On page 11, it's, I guess, under section 6. Manager Burt, you asked for some kind of wording to be changed in here. What were you asking for?
It was about the negotiation for the land swap to include the town within that, not just between the developer and the library.
And I have that in my changes. That was a pretty straightforward, clear one. So last sentence, under number 6, page 11, the potential land transaction is optional and execution dependent upon negotiations in between the selected developer, comma, the town, and the library.
Okay. So are we as a council good with that? Did you make that change as well?
Yes.
Counselor Merritt? Your microphone? Your microphone?
Yes.
Counselor Bordelon?
I just want to make sure I'm clear. So that's not we're not talking yet about the first right of refusal. If we swapped it, gave it to the library, and they had hard times in 40 years and tried to sell it, that it would
No.
revert back. So that would come later?
That would be in the purchase and sales agreement that we would have that discussion.
Add later. So what are we speaking of?
We are asking that the town be part of negotiations between the developer and the library when they do discussions on the land swap, that the town is part of that.
I guess I'm still confused because I thought intent, and I guess through you to the town manager, whoever can answer it, I thought we were gonna try to swap that to make it cleaner before we put it out to RFP. I'm confused.
No, we're
Well-
going to,
I was going to direct to you.
I'm sorry. It was going to be done, I bet, from what I'm gathering, it's supposed to be done simultaneously when when it happens. So when it's sold, it will happen at the same time. Am I correct,
Mayor.
Counsel? Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct, and by having this language in there, you help retain the ability to have that reverter clause later.
Okay.
All right, yeah, I can support that then if that's the plan, as long as we look towards the reverter clause.
Thank you. Counselor Pacino?
Yes.
Counselor Rusk?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor McBride?
Yes.
Counselor Gieske?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. All right. So I'll make a motion. I don't know what motion I'm making here. With amended motions that were approved tonight, that we would forward this off to the RTM. Is that correct?
And the
For
Planning and
approval?
Zoning Commission.
And Planning and Zoning Commission. All right, motion by Franco. Seconded by Rusk.
Point of information,
Your question?
so this is our first read tonight. We had it, like, we could barely read the one we got, but we got another copy when we got here. This is our first read tonight. Usually the council shouldn't send something forward without seeing it, because it gives us a second chance as a council review to make sure there was nothing else in there that we might see that might need some attention. So at first read, we're gonna automatically run it off to another body already? But that's what I'm just trying to understand.
Point of information, we vote on this at the regular town council meeting again, correct? Where we can make changes?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Manager?
I believe this is basically our second reading, is it not? We
This is
went
our
through once,
second.
got changes, and now we're doing it again.
So the last time that this was on the agenda, we spoke more broadly about what was in, what the council wanted to see in RFPs. These same drafts, for the most part, were given to you that night, except for the additions of the guidance that you gave us that night, which included the 10% affordable housing, the piece about
Sustainability,
sustainability, the parks, a few of those kind of language changes, but otherwise, it's the same document that you've seen a couple times now. And
Right. So this is our second, and then when we see it at the town council, will be our third time.
And once the Planning and Zoning Commission and RTM review it, you will then see it again at a CAL meeting.
Right. All right, so, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Counselor McBride, I didn't hear you on your vote.
Aye.
All
Sorry,
right,
aye.
so that's going to pass 8-0. All right. It is actually 10:29 right now, and we need to take a consensus that we would like to continue our meeting. Is there anybody opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Did I say that loud now?
All right. Let's take a vote then. All those who would like to adjourn at this time, well, I guess it could just be a motion to adjourn, and we'll see if it passes, I guess.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjournment by Gieske,
I'm sorry.
seconded by Russ. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. This is 8-0. Thank you, we'll pick it up again. We'll do it all over again.
Recording stopped.